The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
You guys ever heard of a ditto? Do you guys know what dittos are? Do you know what that is?
Ditto.
Well, I know
No,
ditto.
Yeah.
Voila. Welcome to Wednesday
Heard it a
Ultra,
lot.
Andreas. Mr. Douglas, good to hear from you in the
I
Valley of
Dittoed myself a little while ago.
Ooh. Mark. Pink Trip.
time.
Vince and
good time.
Venice Beach Dub Club here. How are you doing, Seth?
Doing well.
Okay.
How you guys doing?
I was
Doing
going to
good.
do that all better, but
No.
then someone asked in the comments, I think it was Keenan, what a ditto was. And I remember what a ditto, because there's the Xerox. You guys remember what a Xerox was. And there's these
Yeah.
kind of collated copies. Do you remember the carbon copies? Do you ever have one of those where you like you write on the thing and then it copies the okay?
You should do it with credit cards of sync. Do you want your copy? Yeah.
But long ago, there were dittos, and dittos were from a machine that wasn't called. I mean, they called it the ditto machine in the 60s. And I remember as a kid, they even still had some in Silicon Valley and some of these UC schools and everything that we were working at. But the ditto machine's real name is the spirit duplicator. And I think that's really interesting. But yeah, so a spirit duplicator, a Rexograph, or a ditto machine, a Banda machine, or the Gestetner machine. So you get the idea that a lot of people had their own version of the same idea, or this was a much more common thing. There would be dragons in Tartaria. In a printing method invented in 1923, supposedly by Wilhelm Ritzerfeld, commonly used for much of the rest of the 20th century. The term spirit duplicator refers to the alcohols that were a major component of the solvents used as inks in these machines. And basically schools and churches and everything, you could copy something and you get a ditto. And this is the back copy of the ditto and that kind of carbon copy that you're familiar with. And you've seen this with the receipts and everything. You would write it. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny. It's called a spirit duplicator.
Does it use alcohol or some kind of spirits in the process or something?
Exactly. So the spirits are the alcohols that are used in the solvent. So when the pressure is done to the ink, then it indents it. It's Here's a hand.
See, guys, they've been cloning us for hundreds of years. I knew it.
It sounds a lot cooler than it really is.
It does, right? But I mean, it does sound cooler than ditto. I think is the most important thing here. Like you can now say spirit duplication. It's really pretty
Would you
sweet.
really want two spirits? You'd be two spirit. You could ask some of the two-spirited people who are out there today. How it works.
Kind of in let me go to this proper link here. So looking at some of the stuff that Seth has talked about in the last week. So if you go to his Instagram and you check on the Talkie Time show in the feed, is it in feed or in Reels? Reels. It's Feels. You should add Feels. Should be a whole other category.
I don't put titles on them or anything. Maybe I should. I just talk randomly and then upload it.
You were saying something though earlier, and it's come up again, this idea of the lab-grown meat, and there was a link to that I wanted to talk about. But what were we thinking about earlier with lab-grown meat? Because also, Mark, you sent like a crazy quote, right? What was the thing that you were saying?
I was watching Alex Jones this morning, and he started talking about it, and I was like, "This is crazy." So basically, they're using this fake meat, the Beyond Meat shit. They're using what they call immortal cancer cells. So this meat will the cells will regenerate or
the immortal cells of Henrietta. That's crazy. You guys hear about this lady? Yeah. So not only is it cannibalism and vampirism, it's also racism, which is a good combination in 2023. Keep going.
And it's like some of the cells are precancerous, some of them are cancer. It's basically you're eating cancer cells.
Why? Just because they reproduce easily? Or?
So, the one person I know that eats this shit is Alex Stein. So I quickly texted Alex Stein on Twitter. I was like, "Are you still eating this fake meat shit?" I like to give
Alex
him a hard
is a
time
vegetarian.
About his stupid diet.
Alex Stein's a vegetarian. It's kind of who's this Alex Stein? Prime time Alex Stein. There we go.
There he is.
Yeah. He eats like a retard.
My word, we're on TV.
Oh, it's okay. No one cares about that word anymore. You're allowed to say that now.
Dude, Linus dropped some hard R's in his youth. You heard about that? You guys know what this is about? LTT, Linus, Sebastian, Tech Tips. So he did this. It was probably like the craziest thing I've ever seen, actually. Linus, he does this now live show called The Wham Party. And on the Wham Party, he said, in the old days, I used to, hear people say words we didn't say before anymore. And he's sitting there with his co-host. He's like, we used to drop hard R's, and his co-host is like, wait, what? What do you mean we used to know? And you could see like the entire crew of the show is immediately starting to call to get new jobs. Like they know this is the end all of a sudden of the show. I mean, what? And then all of a sudden he says, oh wait, do you mean something different? And he's like, do you mean like, are you talking about black people? He's like, no, that's the N word. It's like, no, but
unless they're retarded black people.
And that's what he's like, I meant people with mental disability. It's like
I did a deep dive on the YouTube language policy, and retard was nowhere in there.
Interesting.
Wow.
So
can't let people change the meaning of words because then you can't have a conversation. Obviously,
let's not pretend that YouTube is some objectivity. Censorship.
None of the rules matter.
I got censored the other day on YouTube. What happened? So my my Nopa video. Let's just, now that you've gone there, let's just roll the dice. But so I had done this video where at the very beginning of it, I mentioned that my father is now taking this garlic tincture. Essentially, it's an extraction of garlic. It's nothing else than garlic. It's pure garlic. But that seemed to get recreational drug or something like blockage by
medical
the YouTube
advice
channel.
or something.
Medical.
Like
It didn't say medical advice. It said
You got pulled
recreational.
down midstream, right?
It was, well, no, they didn't pull me down midstream, but they just turned off the monetization
So
and
they
hid the
demonetized.
They
video.
demonetized
Yeah.
you. Whoa.
I thought I was
Right.
watching a video of yours recently that got pulled off. Maybe I'm incorrect though.
I forget. That happens to me.
So
It's
what
totally
was the-
plausible.
Did they
I
send
might
you
have been
an
doing a video and then you did like a copyright strike. When I had alien scientist Jeremy on, he showed some videos from some science lab and then they pulled the video down midstream while he was showing the.
Did they
inner
give
working.
you an email that actually gave you the reason? Like what
It
policy?
says they show 2 moments in the video where we're talking about the Welsh and it says recreational drug policy and there's nothing going on whatsoever. Of course,
Can't
that
smoke the Welsh. Yeah.
it wasn't even the Welsh smoking salmon. I did have a picture of pieces of fillets of salmon generated by AI swimming in a stream, which
So
was
you-
really the
so
closest
you-
I came to that.
So you asked them for a review on the limited ads, right? And that's what they gave you back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they
that's
do
weird,
this.
dude. So they confirmed it and told you that's what it was, right after the fact.
One man pickles. Yeah, that's what they told me afder the fact. Thank you,
Delicious.
one man's pickles are another man's pleasure. I think is what that means, really.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I've had some weird ones that were like sexual content and nudity, and I'm like, dude,
Well, you know, Mark.
what did I do?
It was a reflection in your glasses. They
Did
can
I
see
pull
what you're
my
looking
wang
on the
out? I
screen
didn't
there.
realize it.
I haven't
we're
used
gonna-
YouTube enough to really appreciate getting censored on YouTube, but I'm the most censored on Instagram.
They always do it. They always
Heads
do it
up,
for
I'm
the best
planning on
performing
getting
video.
pretty bad tonight. We're talking about 4chan sissification. But let's also remember it's the Ides of March. Ides of March is the time in Tuscany where it was really sunny and Julius Caesar went shopping for fanny packs. And of course, Marcus Aurelius told him that, dude, you do look really good in blue. But also they stabbed him to death. It's a really sad time and a really beautiful time. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The Ides of March.
I mean,
Heard of this?
There's a naked
Caesar
dude right
salad.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, actually, this picture, I don't even need a wiki. You can just look at the picture. So here's colorized, Julius Caesar being like, "Don't stab me 30
Et
some
tu,
odd-
Brute?
Don't
23
stab me,
times.
bro. Yeah.
23 times in this. In the
We used to say
direction.
that all the time. Et tu, Brute. I feel like no one remembers that anymore.
I love the Romans.
Stab
They
me,
always
bro.
make me feel
Shakespeare,
better.
baby. Hey, tu Brute.
Yeah. From Julius Caesar, yeah.
The
Right.
Romans
Yeah,
make me feel
absolutely,
very
man.
large.
It's, well, he was collapsing. It was a republic, then an empire, and he was collapsing the whole thing. So I don't know. I mean,
It was a
It's
corrupt
more
Senate.
relevant than people realize. The idea that the SPQ, there was a kind of, to an extent, there was a direct democracy. It was obviously generational wealth that was controlling the democracy, but it was still a Senate. And that this was replaced by a military coup and an overthrow that led to a dictatorship. And the idea of Caesars, and these kinds of Kaiser, Caesar, Czar, this comes from after the fall of their democratic republic. So it's kind of interesting because we're also at a point now where we're seeing the fall of free commerce and a free individual trade and a free society and a replacement of a military dictatorship in most of the world, right? I think it's fair to say. We're there.
We're getting there. We're certainly inching towards it.
Oh, you're gonna get limited ads for sexual content with that naked.
I was trying. I think that's about as much as I could get away with. The Swiss regulators offer financial lifetime to Credit Suisse. I was trying to make the joke earlier, like it's a Cry Suisse or something. The Swiss bank is the next thing that's going to fall. I don't know. It's a bad pun, but it's the second time I've tried.
what do you think? Should we let these banks collapse and go
Yes.
live in caves for a couple generations, or
Is it always the
They're not-
caves? Can we
they're
not
not
just
all-
Bitcoin? It's the sad truth, isn't it?
You just got to go. If you have a bank that's at risk, don't take my advice, but maybe you should take your money out and go put it in a bank that's doing. Because I have a bank that's not in trouble right now. I know for a fact they're doing well. So there's
and
good
also
banks out
credit unions are better, and if you have more than $250,000, God bless you. But that's the other thing: is the idea of having that much money in a bank account. Of course, is crazy. You should never have more than the $250,000 in each bank account.
Especially if you have a woke bank. If you have a woke bank, get your money out of there right away.
yes
right,
and no? I would say probably the safest banks are like Chase and Citi, honestly, because they're way too big to fail, and they are super SJW and ESG and all that. But despite that, I mean, they're not going to default.
Yeah, I don't trust my money with any woke anything.
See, that's the whole thing of like, what should we do? Like, there's an opportunity right now to like rock the boat. You know what I mean? But do we really want
Yeah,
to?
let them crash.
Okay.
These guys
Let 'em
definitely,
crash.
because these guys can be used. They're
If
small
you have
enough.
money, HSBC.
Oh God, these guys are small enough for sure that they can be made examples of, because they were behaving badly. It's not just that it was fear that drove people to the bank run. It was also incredible mismanagement of funds,
Yeah.
partially to the wokeness point, but truly they were investing in one very small niche in the tech sector, and they did not do their due diligence. They didn't have any cash on hand. And so when fear hit the fan, when they were starting to sell their bond purchases at a loss, people got scared. There was a run. They had no money, and technology makes it so that you can pull your money right out. Whereas in 1929, it would take a couple of days.
Yeah.
I think it's so much more planned. And again, with let's
There's
not
that
get in
too.
trouble,
There's
but
that
what blows
too.
my
Yeah.
mind is growing up in Santa Cruz, we had this really divisive economic segregatory idea of the strawberry pickers. So, Silicon Valley, and it's the beach of Silicon Valley. There's a lot of really, really rich people there. And then you've got people that are literally picking strawberries by hand, and they're brought in, and they're saying it's illegal immigration, but it's clearly not, because they're basically slaves, right? And I'm not just saying it myself. Modern slavery is kind of the term a lot of people have pointed to as what they do to strawberry picker. It's crazy, and then anytime someone says, oh, well, they're taking our jobs, you'll point and say, oh, really? You want to pick strawberries? Yeah, I'm sure.
For $20 an hour, Americans would want to pick strawberries. Yeah, I mean,
I don't even think for $20 an hour you want to pick strawberries. It is a hard job.
It is
and the amount of
back-breaking labor. Yeah,
and the
their backs aren't
chemicals.
broken. they're all right. I mean, I've read Grapes of Wrath and everything. It definitely sucks,
You
but
probably have
So
to pay
the
35
chemicals,
now.
the chemicals that they spray on
that's a
strawberries,
different story. Yeah.
it's so freaking dangerous and cancer causing. I want to show the picture of the strawberry chemical spray, because usually what it looks like is as a child, sprayers, anything, it reminded me of this. There we go. It reminded me of E.T. You go to the other side of town, right? And all of a sudden there are these guys that are dressed in hazmat suits, like they can, with gas masks, so that they don't breathe the stuff that they're spraying. And then there's water runoff, and everyone always says, oh, well, people that are drinking the water in Watsonville, they're drinking the strawberry chemical runoff, and it's either making them crazy or it's giving them cancer, and they're having increased miscarriages or whatever the story is, right?
Yeah, but
So
then we
there's
eat these strawberries, right? Isn't that
Of course.
kind of story?
kind of blows your mind a little bit, I think.
I mean, you're supposed to rinse them, but I mean, does that really do the job?
But don't you think
mean-
everyone wants it to be this way? Because everyone keeps engaging in it. Like, economics is a study of human motivation, and you can tell what people are motivated by the choices they make. So everybody makes a choice to engage in the system as it is and to increase their investment into it. So it seems like everyone likes to complain about it, but nobody really wants to rock the boat.
I mean, we're making big changes. People are making the world a better place. We're switching, as we said, to lab-grown meat. So, I mean, again, everything is getting better because there's new solutions that are emerging, right?
Yeah,
I
eat that
can eat
cancer
that,
meat, man. It's not going to cause you any problems.
It'll grow forever. It's right, forever and ever.
But
I don't
again,
want lab-grown meat, but I eat meat. I eat mostly meat, but I honestly don't think I should. I've been thinking about it a lot recently.
Nah,
maybe.
you should. You should.
Well, I mean, how do you know? Because like, if you're getting cloned beef, which I mean, Alex Jones has shown most of the beef in America is cloned. In the world, it's starting to sound like. Is that?
And the reason
are
is
you,
the idea.
are you eating beef? You know.
I only eat cows I kill myself. I go to I make sure to murder it myself.
And he only kills them by strangulation.
That's right. You burn off the calories that you then take in. Yes. Even exchange. Even exchange.
There are all these rules that they make that seem so. For instance, vaporization laws in Australia, which are leading, so they made it harder and harder for vape shops to exist, and now Indonesian and Chinese black market vapes are appearing all over Australia because they can't control, of course, the society. And you also think about the smoking. We talked earlier, Doug and I, about the cigarette culture and why it is the way it is in France and America. It was a point in the 70s when they started trying to persuade French to smoke less. And I think I have the map here.
And the French said, absolutely not, fuck you, we are French.
Well, so what blowed, this is not this is not the correct years, but you can kind of, there's another example. Basically, what they found was that it was working, and then they were afraid that the lifetime expectancy was going to be
Would
too
go
high for them to support the French quality of social health care.
Oh shit, we
And-
can't have this many old people around. Smoke again.
Literally. And so during Sarkozy, they started pushing smoking in France again. And it was in order to drive down the population age, and also introducing other, you know, vices that had been discouraged in the British sectors, right?
Do you think it's possible that smoking isn't as bad as they say it is?
Yes.
I'm sure that if you soak a pack of cigarettes in the chemicals that Marlboro's soaked in, and you have these weird fiberglass bits in your
Yes.
in your filter, and the weird dyes, plus they have pieces of things to help the cigarette
sugar
burn,
at
right?
the tip, all sorts of crazy stuff that they put in the
They've got
the factory made
fire
stuff.
retardant in the paper so it can't like flare up.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think it's like there's so many people that get lung cancer that never smoked, right?
Mhm.
So it's like
well, I don't think it's necessarily lung cancer you're going to get, but you could get, for sure, the carbon burning can create teratogens or carcinogens, and teratogens don't just affect you, they affect your reproductive system. So there are, of course, mutations that emerge, but you also have CRISPR and Cas9, Cas11, Cas12 built in, right? Your DNA is designed to look for emerging mutations and to stop them from reproducing. So we have a fighting chance, right?
yeah, but
And
how
when
long?
you're just using the plant,
Yeah.
it's quite different from the factory stuff. I'm sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like how long in human history did we sit around campfires
Yes.
and
yeah.
breathe it? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
hang out.
one of
That's
the
right.
leading causes of death in Europe in the 19th century was fireplaces. Children would not be able to; their lungs wouldn't be able to handle just the fumes
Yeah.
coming from the fireplace, even with the chimney.
so I'm not saying you wouldn't be healthier not smoking, but I think they do what they always do, which they kind of exaggerate shit to make it as bad as possible. In my opinion,
Mhm.
that's a theory.
I think cigarettes are as bad as possible. Like they've made it as bad as possible. I agree with what Douglas was saying. If you buy just like natural tobacco,
Loose leaf.
it actually
yeah.
smells kind of good. Or pipe tobacco is like a
Yeah.
pleasant smell. Then
It's
you
good
smell a
soap
cigarette
smell.
and you get like a warning alert from your system. It's like warning, like fatal toxins being inhaled. You know, if somebody's smoking a cigarette in front of me on the street, which in New York where I grew up was constantly, I walked in the street. I never walked on the sidewalk, and I would practically be running everywhere I went just to pass all the smokers because I refused to walk downwind from a smoker.
Yeah, I mean, like, and which doctors can you trust on the issues of what's healthy? Because you know, and clearly, all of those dead doctors who were holistic doctors did not. I don't know what the Snopes said. It's false. Is all. Somehow it's false. So you just know that it. You know, we're not. Yeah, we're not in trouble here, right? But yeah, all these
But
dead
here's
doctors
a good
telling us
question
what's
about-
healthy.
Don't
What is
smoke,
healthy?
kids. Don't smoke.
Right. That's right.
I have a good question about lab grown meat though, right? Like we see that life is like a process of consumption and life and death and stuff like that, but we don't know if it has to be, if that's the only way it can function. And since we do have philosophical thought and ideals and stuff like that, it would be ideal if like lions didn't even have to eat zebras and they could just play all day and lay down and have fun, kind of like domesticated animals do in your house. They can all get along because they're fed. You know, is it even possible to achieve a situation like that? Is that desirable? Should we be trying to augment the way nature works and life works?
I think
Or
that's the thing
traditional
where
ways just always the best because they're traditional.
the next level isn't going to be eating vegetables. It's going to be not eating at all. It's the Jetsons. You know, they're going to move to a point where they're saying-
Breatharians. I mean,
Breatharians, right? Oh man, I closed all my breatharian tabs earlier. Are you kidding me? That's been on my mind a lot. That came up for Base AF. So the Anidia, right? So there was a group in Santa Cruz which were all into breatharianism, and then the person in charge of it got caught at a McDonald's eating a Big Mac, and they said, "Oh, they weren't really doing it for the substance of the food; it was for the flavor, you know, because they didn't really need to eat." But there's a lot of people that have claimed to become breatharians, and of course, throughout history, this is the kind of macho guru thing. You'd say, "Oh yeah, I sat in a cave, I didn't eat, and I was fine." You know, that's. But is it reasonable? This idea kind of takes you away from the toroidal nature of reality, that we're living in this sort of as above so below, but there's something that's coming from above and coming in, and something that's coming out, right? You're not just this outside of nature thing, you're part of nature. There's something that comes into you, there's parts of it that come out of you. You have to go to the bathroom, or at least excrete in some way.
in some way. And what comes out of you is not technically waste. It can be turned into soil, very rich,
Right.
healthy soil in a couple of years.
Right, but all of these processes only keep the machinery of the material realm moving, and we consider our consciousness to be something separate from the physical realm. Almost like we're in a prison where you're forced to sin, because we have these ideological souls that want these perfect platonic states, but then we're in these bodies that are constantly having to consume and poop, and all these animals are eating each other, and there's like no way around it. It's almost like a prison where you're forced to not progress in the way you want to, philosophically or ideologically.
Well, there are plenty of people in India that refuse just about everything they can and live very, very simple lifestyles.
Yeah,
So
I call them losers.
I don't know. So
there are
here's
losers out there that do pursue certain. Yeah, I mean they're
well,
out there.
okay.
Not that,
What's the value
Shout out to
in
the
eating?
Indians.
What's the value of eating so many parasites that you've got a lot of parasites flowing through your body? I don't know if that's really the greatest thing. A lot of people who eat a lot, they're not just feeding one.
that's
they're
right.
not. It's not
That's
just
right.
setting a tail.
They're not
off
just
one.
eating for one anymore. That's right.
Right. And you're gonna find people's hours change. They get up at weird hours. They go to sleep at weird hours, so that parts of their brain are being run by these parasites, and that's not good either. I think we should also be aware that you don't need to eat all that much food, and there's probably something wrong if you feel like you do. I mean, something that should be like looked into at least.
I notice if I eat a lot of carbs, I get hungrier. Where if I'm eating like low carb, I don't barely even need to eat.
Oh, these pictures.
This is my vibe here, though. I feel like this is what runs the world. When people are like, lizard people, I'm like, lizard people, they're just the doctors. Insectoids,
parasites.
there's the super soldiers. It's really all about, this is at the top of the food chain are these parasites. And they're inside of everybody's brain and everyone's gut fauna, which seems worse, arguably.
Yeah. That could be us. We could be that and not like the monkey thing.
There's all kinds of organisms that live in our body besides parasites. It's just
bacteria. That's right. And you
flora.
have. That's right.
Oh, purple Earth theory. Okay, you guys did it. Thanks. So
Purple Earth.
People been wondering about purple Earth theory, and I was wondering about purple
great
Earth.
weed strain.
It sounds like everything. A band, a music
It's
video.
that purple Earth, bro.
Purple Earth hypothesis. Purple Earth hypothesis. Purple Earth hypothesis.
Yeah, right.
Purple Earth hypothesis. Okay, I feel better
Great
now.
improv name.
The deal is, at one point, okay, let's start with spectrum. Color spectrum. I've shown this before. Scale. If you look at a rainbow spectrum, you'll see
psychic.
there's a lot of green going on here. Too much green. You think, why are plants green then? You'd think that they'd want to absorb their radiation. Maybe they would want to be like yellow because there's a lot less of that to worry about. So you just you absorb yellow and you refract out everything else. But the plants turning green is kind of an interesting choice. Purple, it seems like, was what things used to be more. And if you look at the purple Earth hypothesis, the reason for it, where did I put it?
Is this like the perpetual twilight Earth theory?
At a certain point, it was that there wasn't as much chlorophyll, and there was a much more simple retinal bacterial molecule that absorbed photosynthesis. In a sense, it's actually a different process called bacteriorhodosopsin. No, or that's the protein that does this, but it can produce electricity, it can produce energy. Ooh. In a similar way that DNA works, and it's what bacteria uses in order to produce ATPs, using ADPs and PIs. Whoa. So it's very similar to how your gut produces energy from a carbohydrate. But this is what before plants and animals, most of the opisthokonta eukaryote, which is where mushrooms emerge, humans emerge, and plants emerge out of. But plants are very different because of the cell wall. The lack of cell wall, whereas humans and mushrooms are all part of this opisthokonta and still produce often a lot of this bacteriopsodin inside of the what's it called again? The retinal bacteria. So at one point, what this suggests is that everything was purple, basically, and this was during a period when, maybe there was a major cloud cover. Maybe the light was different, and everything has kind of turned to chlorophyll-based life at a certain point, or started digesting life that was, at that point, you didn't have any option for retinal bacteria to produce electricity. So chlorophyll, or ATPs, so chlorophyll would have produced it, and then you would have consumed the life that is producing the chlorophyll. And that would produce a lot of things eating each other, which wouldn't have been the nature before that. It would have been more convenient to just produce ATPs directly, right?
Shelley
And
Green, man, she says nicotine kills parasites, and that's true. It's true.
there's a mononicotinamide.
Nicotine's an amazing substance.
Plus
so
one.
were you saying about that we could all be purple and breatharians, basically?
Sorry.
Well, that's
Breathe in
based,
your purple, bro. Yeah.
that's kind of the idea, though, is that at some point, bacteria
Life wasn't
directly
consumptive.
and whatever parts of life that are living within you would have naturally been consumptive of itself. Whatever like saline solutions or minerals that are going through it.
Why
would
do you
probably
think the
still
color
matter.
green lowers stress hormone production? I can't think what the stress hormone is called right now, but green is like
Cortisol.
yeah. Green is like the most calming color. Do you think that changed? That just evolved with a change of plant color?
Is purple? What does purple make people? What does purple make people?
Good
feel?
question. All I know is purple is the color of royalty. Psychic, I
Right.
like that.
No.
When you see purple and green together, you know everything's going to be great. Like whether it's weed or you're just walking in the woods and you see purple and green, that means it's springtime.
Of course,
Lots
and
of colors.
that's the thing that is interesting to me, to be honest. You know, if we're gonna go there, talking about purple cannabis, because the fact that it produces purple, when does it do that? It does that under
Cold.
very specific cold circumstances.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's interesting in and of itself. Talking about an environmental shift.
Yeah, but if you start turning purple, then we got problems.
My hands
As
already
Randall
turn
Carlson
purple in
does.
the cold. I've got Raynaud's syndrome, so my hands turn purple as soon as it's like below 60 degrees.
Wow.
Interesting.
What is that Raynaud's syndrome? What is that?
It's not
mean?
spelled like that. It's spelled like a French word.
Oh, of course.
Purple
Raynaud.
also
there you
stands
go.
for
Yeah.
royalty.
Raynaud syndrome.
Runs in my family.
Wow.
Does it happen also if you smoke a cigarette at all? Is it about blood loss?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of just like a cross signal thing. You know, it's
Probably
like
It might. It seems like it affects the capillaries, but I've always wondered, this must be evolutionarily useful in some sort
Yeah.
of weather, right?
Think?
That might be something that maybe in the
Definitely.
extreme
Hey, what's the
desert.
temperature
or something?
outside? I don't know. It's getting colder, yo. Like,
Yeah,
Or
it's
something.
definitely not good in the cold because your hands get numb right away. So it's
oh,
like,
so
Yeah.
it does come with
doesn't have any.
lack
It's
of
not like my hands
sensation?
turn purple, but they don't get colder. they
Yeah.
get colder than the average person, probably. It's
Brutal.
bad circulation.
Does it
circulation
happen
problem.
only to your hands? Does it happen to your feet too?
It happened to my feet when I was younger, but
Yeah.
it stopped happening with my feet.
Yeah, I would think that would
Oh,
do with circulation, because like if you were to cut off like so your blood doesn't flow, that would start turning purple, right?
Yeah, but the reason that the circulation isn't happening is because of like it's like a signal error.
Cross
It's not
signal.
like a constriction or something or a blockage.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, not a fan.
This is your
Yeah.
show, Andreas. Where are you going, dude?
What do you think? All right, I was looking at this stuff for a second. The energy healing hands on healing with Dr. William Benson. Do you know about this, Doug? What is this?
Yes.
Who is this?
So, and thank you for that's just I'm familiar with Dr. William Bankston's work from a couple of years ago. He popped up on Twitter a little while ago just because people were discussing, UFO Twitter basically. But they were talking about, oh, we don't know what gravity is, and he actually says we don't know what gravity is, but we know that it's there. Well, when you really break it down, we don't know what healing is either, but we know it happens. We don't know what instigates or starts or stops healing within us. And he is the first person to say that energy healing, distance healing, he is not a believer. However, very early on in his career, he met a man named the Great Grad who ended up being a psychic that taught him how to heal with his hands-on healing. He became obsessed. He took it to the lab, has run decades of tests, and has taught other people, countless people, how to heal first mice, but then themselves, others, and produce myriad other kinds of fantastical effects. One wacky side effect with his training course, which is called cycling, and very briefly, Bankston's course, instead of focusing Reiki energy at your target and channeling good vibes at them or opening up their chakras, he has you remove yourself almost completely from the idea of healing whatsoever. Your intention is you're going to heal somebody. Cool. For the next 20 minutes, you're going to think rapidly as you possibly can, without emotionally attaching to imagery, about 20 images of stuff that you want. It can be anything from a popsicle to a hot night out, but stuff that you want, and go as quick as you can for 20 minutes. It's not very easy to begin with, but once you become familiar with the imagery, the cycling ends up kicking into high gear and happens, and you can maintain it for quite some time. Anyway, this cycling technique becomes reproducible in the lab, again, over decades of tests. to the point where he's healing mice 200 miles away in a lab across the country. It's a fascinating story, but he talks about how we don't know how this stuff at the basic level actually works, but it does. And because it does, we should look into that and pay attention to that, because it does work. And there's so much more that we can do for ourselves. Become breatharians, paint ourselves purple, have a little nicotine. There's a lot of stuff that we are not addressing that is right in front of our faces, that is a part of us innately.
I mean, just the placebo effect on its own is wild.
There you go.
I mean, it's wild that you can just, give somebody some sugar pill and that they think it's going to work. All of a sudden, oh, I'm healed.
Right.
That tells you there's a lot of weird shit going on there.
Aside from the band, though, what do you think about Reiki? You think that there's anything to that, Mark? The idea that energy healing, or that there's any of that, any amount of woo in you?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the body has the power to heal itself. It's like, how do you unlock the body's own ability to heal itself? And maybe there's other weird ass ways to do it. I've seen some
weird stuff with Reiki where people who definitely don't believe in the Reiki whatsoever were just pushed. There's energy feeling. I mean, it might be that someone's just that charismatic that they're able to convince that person instantly who's so.
What is that? That is some kind of energy transfer.
Right.
And whether, so yeah.
Here's a weird story. My best friend growing up, he was he was born early, right? And his lungs collapsed when he was born. So he had like this terrible asthma, but his mom was into this thing where like it was she would know like every pressure point on the body, and she would go through and like massage his feet. And there's like all these spots in the feet that are supposed to like manipulate the lungs. And she cured his asthma by doing like these weird foot massages. So there's all these different cultures that have all these different techniques that, who knows?
I think it's really interesting that we think it's so weird that touching the body could heal the body. It's like, how crazy did Western medicine get that's an odd idea to us. Like, wait, you can touch, because, doctors in Russia were more like house. They don't meet the patient. They don't want to talk to the patient. You don't want to have a relationship because patients die. It's it's not an investment you need to make. And even in the West, they've kind of been afraid since the plague that if they interact, I mean, French doctors were like, really wash your hands or something. I don't know. They didn't even have gloves. So I don't know. It seems weird. We're just getting to a point where people touch. And who was saying this? I think it was Frank Zero, who was on a show a while ago, that he's gone to several doctors who were not white is what he called them, so I'm not sure what he means, but something where they were native or from Asia somewhere, and they would touch him in a certain way and ask him if he's feeling all right. But in the process of how they touch him, it made him sit a certain way and breathe a certain way. And then they're like, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, I wasn't when I came in here, but now I am. And so a lot of it is how you breathe, how you carry yourself, and just getting your body into a balance. I think that is true.
I know there's certain parts that you touch me, I'm going to feel really good. So.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Reiki's where you don't touch, right? So Reiki's weird. If you got someone in their hand around you and you kind of feel like a thing, what do you think? Is there anything that, I mean, just that there's energy outside your body. We can measure that. So can the body feel that? It seems like that'd be reasonable.
You have to wonder how much of it is placebo effect. Because I mean, the placebo effect is very powerful. Effect? Right. It's the belief that something's being done to heal you and your body triggers itself into healing.
So your body triggers an energetic response to a belief, right?
Yeah, it's like a positive mindset that, hey, I'm going to do this thing. It's going to make me better. And then your body believes it to the point where your body...
But isn't it the belief that they're a superhero using magic force fields to pull things out of your body? So if something's being pulled out of your body, that's a different thing to believe than just my body's healing itself.
They could be doing other things. It doesn't have to be an energy exchange. It could be vibrations that restructure your cells or something. It could be anything. But I think there's huge benefits to. There's so many lonely people in the world today. Like you were saying that people are just starting to touch each other. I wasn't really sure what it meant. It seems like people touch each other less than at any point in human history.
But prayer's been shown too, man. So prayer, like if you like, I think there are doctors that will tell people to pray because they've seen good results. So if you're doing something, if you're religious, like go ahead and pray. Well, I think there's a powerful effect in the mind where if you can really, mind over matter.
From Douglas Adams can't hurt. Will it help? No.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the prayer itself, you're saying isn't helping. You're saying it's the placebo effect, right?
yeah,
That's what
well,
you believe.
I think it's a form of a placebo effect where your body, like
It's like an affirmation.
your
I
body
mean,
can heal itself, and if like you can get in the right mindset of like thinking that if I do this thing, it's gonna make me heal. Like it trick. Sorry, I'm doing this fucking Zen, and I don't know how to keep the shit in my lip. It keeps coming out. It's very fun. I'm still learning how to use this Zen shit.
Oh,
yeah,
I thought you were
it's just
saying
like-
you were trying to be Zen. That's hilarious.
No, Zen, the nicotine delivery system.
I notice when sometimes I have insomnia, and sometimes I'll have insomnia for like 5 nights in a row or something really catastrophic. But whenever I have insomnia, like I start craving like human contact. Like I feel like I need a hug or like I'm gonna die. And I never feel that way at any point. Like I'm a pretty solitary person. But if I have insomnia, I'm just like I need something. I'll like hug a pillow or something, or just wish I had a pet. So there is something about grounding. Like you can ground, you can put your feet in the earth and ground yourself. But I think there's like real serious necessary grounding thing that happens when people hug, and large groups of people hug, and most animals, they just cuddle in, with any season, they just smush in as close as they can get, as many animals as they can get. 100 kittens, they all just smush into a small space, and
Yeah, there's something about being sleepy that brings that out, I think, because I know when I'm sleepy, I get real randy.
SpongeBob dream sequence. There's an episode of SpongeBob where he has a dream. I think it's called Sleepy Time, and in it he goes and he gets into the dreams of every other character, and he messes with their dreams. And when they wake up, they're very angry, and then they go and they bother SpongeBob in the real life in the waking life because he's been astral projecting all night. I think it's an interesting episode. But you think about also The Secret, because that kind of in a way came up just by talking about the Dr. Bennington. What's his name? Benson?
Bill Bankston, Dr. Bankston.
Looking at the mass of the human body, the idea, according to The Secret and what the bleep do we know, right, is that we're made of mass. We have thoughts. Therefore, our thoughts have mass. So thoughts are, if they have mass is magnetic. Our thoughts are magnetic. How oversimplified do you think that is? Or does it hold? Do you think that makes sense?
Why do thoughts have to have mass? Just because we have mass?
If we have mass and we have thoughts, then our thoughts have mass because they're part of us.
Well, they might have mass in another dimension. Our thoughts might exist in a totally different dimension.
Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions baked into that don't make sense to me at first flush, but I'd have to.
You never know. There's a lot of assumptions in everything. The thought dimension, man, it could exist. Your dreams and all that could be happening in another dimension.
Well, everything is happening in every dimension.
Theories
I mean, there are no flat shapes. That's just an illusion. But like all the dimensions that are foundational to existence all exist all the time, everywhere and in everything. It's just that our consciousness tends to observe lower dimensional stuff like time passing or like moving through time. But yeah, I see what you mean. When you're in your dreams,
mathematical dimensions, I'm talking about woo dimensions.
Well, that's what the word dimension means. People have, like we say, we shouldn't change the meaning of the word, like man and woman. Dimension means a geographical plane, like a geometric plane. But we've changed it to mean now, since thanks to like Stargate and stuff. Now in our mind, we've changed what a dimension is, and we've lost touch with what dimensions.
Well, there's different words can have different meanings and be the same word.
Well, you mean a realm, like when you walk through like a Stargate,
like a dimensional realm.
You're in a purple desert where you can fly or something. That's
a realm that has
like
many
when you
dimensions.
take DMT and you start talking to interdimensional aliens, right?
Yeah, but like when people have these conversations, and people have these conversations increasingly, thanks to YouTube, about dimensions and stuff, they ignore that dimensions are actually like geometric planes that like define the materials.
So the idea, and it's an important distinction, because a realm is a place where you could say an alien or a demon or an angel or a fairy came from a realm, and they're able to perceive multiple dimensions in the sense that you can perceive Pac-Man, and Pac-Man is a flatlander, right? Which is the book that really
he can't look up and see you unless he takes DMT. But it's a good point about somebody should give a video game DMT. Then as soon as we can get a third eye hooked up to AI, we got to give it DMT and see what happens. But it's a good point about the dreams, because in dreams you're not moored to you're able to move. I always say this, but it bears repeating because it's a complicated and new concept. In dreams, you can move different directions in time, space. You don't have to move linearly. You don't have to move to an adjacent space. Like there's no chessboard rules like there is with your body. And also you can even change yourself. You can become a different person in appearance or gender or anything like that. So dreams, really, it's like your consciousness experiencing more dimensions, but those dimensions are present here right now. Like we're in the dream space right now, but we're only able to perceive the moves we can make, like the chess moves we can make, which is one step at a time, forward through time in the same body. Like you can't change other variants. You can't move into like a variant reality or an alternate timeline, where in dreams you're experiencing like the fullness of reality.
Do you think that so in the idea of electromagnetic consciousness, that it might not be that thoughts are magnetic, but that whatever we're using to make our thoughts or transceive these thoughts are in an EM field? That's kind of the theory that Susan Pocket and John Joe McFadden proposed, and it's been kind of accepted, if not that they have their own mass, that they're producing field which is affecting the mass around us. So there's something going on with thoughts themselves that is physical. Do you think there's anything physical about it, or is it just completely esoteric?
Well, if it's electrical signals in the brain, is that physical?
The thought process of receiving or creating thoughts is definitely a physical process. It's taking place in the brain, but the thoughts themselves, I don't see where they have to have any mass. They could just be does electricity itself have mass? I don't think it does. Does electricity have mass? Really. I don't think so, right? And the universe is flooded with I think electricity and magnetism, like electromagnetism, or if you could fully understand what those two things
right
are.
On mass. Electricity does affect mass, is the thing. It needs mass to affect or to have a field around.
Okay.
I would say it's part of the physical world, electricity. Right? So I don't know.
It's kind of like a bridge, It kind of is and kind of isn't.
Oh, but that is like the whole point of The Secret. They're saying in The Secret that you're able to attract thoughts because your mind is a magnet.
The secret is just about positive thinking to me. If you think positively and you envision what you want and you also work your ass off towards it, you're going to have a better chance of succeeding. That's all it is. It's not some weird freaking, if I think about it, I'm going to get it. No, it's just having a positive mindset. But then, even in
Norman Vincent Peale also said,
even if you watch The Secret, they're like, but you still got to work for
Trump's mentor.
Right.
Yeah, affirmations work, prayer works. I don't think somebody's like directly answering or listening to the prayers, but the act of prayer does create like a positive chemical response in the body. It does make things better, and also belief in the possibility of you achieving your goal or your system working will make it much more likely to be so.
When you expect the best, you release a magnetic force in your mind, which by the law of attraction tends to bring the best to you. Norman Vincent Peale. So it feels like on some level they're saying it's magnetic. Do you think that it's magnetic in a non-physics way that they're saying? Because it does seem like we're able to attract others with the same kinds of thoughts. We pull ourselves into places. I just think even the freeway on a Friday will show you the power of thought, whether it's positive or not, how people flow together. They're all heading to a beach at a full moon.
It seems pretty obvious. Like if you're looking at a mountain and you're headed towards a mountain, like where are you going? You're going to the mountain. You know what I mean? If you turn around and it's like the ocean, you're looking at that, and then which way are you going? So it almost seems like so simple that you don't, but I guess
is it not that the thoughts are magnetic, but the people are, right?
I don't think that's knowable. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that thoughts are, nobody's done an experiment where they detected like magnetic thought. Have they? Like, can you see like magnetic fields, like when people are having different thoughts, like entering and exiting the skull or something like that? Or
they do EEG, right? And they can show
but that doesn't
EEG
that's
fields.
Interior to the skull. It doesn't show like you're saying magnetic, like things are entering the skull. So it's like, can you see them coming in like on one side of the skull, then on the inside of the skull, or vice versa?
Well, that's the next question, because if there is any truth to this, even if there isn't, the military would be looking into it. And that explains a lot of the stuff like HARP or any of the mind control. That's not just mind control. It is often these antennas, and using EMF fields to provoke people to go into the same locations. Obviously, you can make people's heads hurt with radiation. So you can drive people into the same place. Can you also lure people, make it seem that there's a magnetically more convenient place to stand in the world and convince people that that's where they want to stand?
I think we are. I mean, my best guess is we are electricity. Like what we call our consciousness is itself electricity. So obviously there's all kinds of stuff you can do to alter the magnetic fields that you're existing in. So, you know, everything we have going on with HARP and microwaves and ELFs and EMF and, you know, 5G and all that kinds of stuff has the potential to interfere. And it seems to, with some people, interfere with their consciousness and their health. And with other people, it doesn't seem to bother them at all. And I don't know if that's a genetic thing. I don't know if that's a state of mind thing. Like you can have a certain state of mind where maybe ignorance is bliss. And if you've never heard of 5G, you can be standing right on top of it and not affected. And then other people who really think about it a lot and are concerned about it probably suffer the worst results from it. But there's definitely a ton of risk that comes with tampering the electric field that we exist in, because I think that's like I think that's the most important part of everything.
Have you heard of the Planck-Kleinert crystal? Like,
we got to let Mr. Douglas talk. He had something to say. We kept talking over him.
Oh, just that I think that it's a very complex issue, but that I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It is. We are so much more than just electricity, than just biochemical reactions. And there is so much that we have agency in that can affect all of these many levels of experience. And you had said when talking about The Secret, it's not just about thinking a certain way, though that does tend to orient what we are on many different levels, many different dimensional experiential levels, whether we're conscious of them or not, to then take action, to find motivation, to then move in this physical realm towards what then we are focusing on. It is complex, yet the experience of it is fairly direct. And it, according to Bill Bankston, the more you think about it, the less effective you are at it. It's about setting an intention and then getting out of your own way. One thing I did want to say is what keeps coming back in this discussion roundabout is that if we allow ourselves a certain frame of mind, whatever it is that we are looking to have come into our physical experience has more opportunity to come into our physical experience than not allowing that thought to occur or be held within our mind frame, our reality box.
Yeah, makes sense. I think
a baked-in assumption to all that is that it's important for our health to be good and for us to feel good. Like that's like
not necessarily. That's not baked in. It is up to you. You can decide that what is good for you is terrible for somebody else, but it's good for you. Morals certainly help the human race help each other.
What about things that are bad for you but are good? Then
right. Well, that was my point.
Like letting the banks crash, for instance, would be very bad for us, but it would be good overall. It's the right thing to do,
exactly. Well, I don't know. Who would it be good for?
I think there's a point.
Yeah,
there's a point where, like, and that's what cancer is interesting. You've got a point where the tumor says to survive, it would be better to not allow the political body of the biology to be in charge by that group anymore. We're going to just go on in mutiny. That's really what a tumor is. And not all tumors are malignant. Some are benign. But this idea that at some point, a lot of the time in Chinese medicine, they'll say, oh, you've had a trauma in the last 7 years, with some 3 to 7 years, and it'll start to produce a tumor. And that's kind of accepted in a lot of Chinese medicine. They're like, when did you have your trauma? Is an immediate first assumption when someone had cancer. So I think that we all kind of look at our society at a political body the same way. When is it true that the rest of the body is suffering because of what's going on with other parts of the body? And and that's not always it's not always that simple to understand what the brain is doing to the body, what the gut is doing to the body. These things, they might seem more subtle than we really realize. It might be
what all of us are doing in concert, you know, like unspoken agreements, like what we all do in concert that changes, you know, totally terraforms our reality into something maybe
plastic in China comes to mind. You know, it's like we're all doing it. You know,
fractional reserve banking comes to mind. I mean, a lot of this
chemicals for sure.
a lot of this is predicated on like getting everybody into a house. You know what I mean? Like we're mitigating poverty, and then we're like, now we can mitigate like middle classness, and everyone can be rich. Like it is possible. There are theories of how you can make everybody rich and everybody live like a billionaire. But you know, so it's like the good intentions of it, but the way we terraform our whole reality, you know, it feels good on the individual level. And why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't you want to have more wealth and more options and stuff like that? But then we see it's cancerous to existence as a whole.
We are kind of all rich on a global scale in America.
Yeah, it's compared to what, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
it'd be nice to be Swiss, but I hear you. I mean,
are we angels or animals? You know, we're stuck halfway in between, and a lot of people are so traditional that they almost want to be animals. They're like, I want my wife, my kids, I want a source of food and clean water. It's like, you're a grazing animal, you know, it's like you're essentially, and other people are like, I want to create new metals and go to Mars and start a colony. And it's like these totally opposite ways of thinking. And it's like really are like, you know, we can conceive of like higher beings. So some people want to try to become them, but now there's this backlash to this contrarianism where a lot of people want to almost go back to like the Garden of Eden and just like graze and walk around on all fours. And like, that's the most traditional way to do it.
Can we live in a world where all of that exists in a beneficial tandem? I mean,
that's a really good question. But when two intelligent species meet each other, either an elimination occurs or a domestication. There are no instances of two intelligent species kind of in the same realm that can coexist without one domesticated.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean,
species here, so who's going to domesticate who?
Well, no, I mean, like humans that decide to get Neuralinks and stuff like that won't be able to peacefully coexist with humans that don't, unless they domesticate them like pets.
We'll see about that, VB.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to an extent, but I also think, I mean, like there's a way that that's true, but there's
Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon man, right? It's a genocide. I mean,
not necessarily. Again, we don't know that. It could be extremophiles that were trying to travel a lot and they were getting outside of their comfort zone. And those are the kinds of people that like to often try new things or new people. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some romance.
A fun thought experiment?
I am part Neanderthal, so be careful what you say.
Well, you've got an amazing hairline, bro, so that the brow is working in your favor.
Thank you.
I have a fun thought experiment, which is how much smarter could your pets get before you wouldn't tolerate them anymore, and it'd basically end in like
that was it.
Able to coexist. You know,
that was a question.
Like,
yeah,
if you sit down and you come down, you come home from work, you're excited to see your pet because they're simple. That's why people like pets. They're simple. They like you. They like food. They like belly rubs. You don't have to overthink it. But what if you came home and you sit on the couch and you put on your Netflix show? You put on what's the show everyone's watching now? All of Us or something, whatever it is.
Last of Us.
Yeah, Last of Us. You put on Last of Us and your cat gets on the couch and your cat's like, I want to watch The Bachelorette. And you're like, no, we're watching my show. And it's like, this is messed up. We always watch your show. It's like, you live in my house, you know, I feed you. And it's like, why'd you even want me? You know, so it's like, if your cat got a little bit smarter than it is right now, you wouldn't want to keep it as a pet anymore.
I disagree.
What would your relationship?
I'd keep them.
Well, that's like having like a free roommate. So you could have as many free roommates as you want right now. You know, it's just, they're not as cute because they're people or something.
I love my dog for his loyalty, not for his stupidity. It would be easier because part of why I have to take so much care of him is because he's stupid. Like if he wasn't so stupid, he could go walk himself. I wouldn't have to walk him on a freaking leash and worry about him running in front of running in front of a car like a moron. So I wish he was smarter. I always tell him that. Like, I wish you weren't so stupid, dude. It's annoying.
How smart would you want him to be? Smarter than you?
You know what? If he kept the loyalty aspect, you know, and every time I came home, he was like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? I'm happy to see you, bro. What's up? Let's go hang out. Like, that'd be awesome. But if he started becoming a jerk, well, yeah, you know, if he was like...
So this is what people have against cats. Cats are a little too smart for people, I think, is the thing.
I have a cat. I have no problem with my cat. My cat's great. She's smart.
What if it got way smarter, though? You know, what if your cat started speaking English?
Being way smarter and speaking English does not... then preclude the fact that she becomes an asshole.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Mr.
Still be cool. Yeah.
Just because we're
then think of the nature of your relationship.
Smart means they're going to be a jerk.
But then what's up with the nature of your relationship? Why don't they go get a job and pitch in on the rent?
That'd be dope, dude. That'd be
if my cat could like blog and make six figures, hell yeah.
Well, what do we see in reality when there's two intelligent groups trying to occupy one space? What do we actually see happen in reality? Is like wars, right? Like nonstop war when two intelligent species.
I don't think so. Families live in one household. They do not go to war all the time. They do sometimes. But
it's just a
not all
thought
of the time.
experiment.
Hey,
It
Mr.
depends.
Buden.
Because this is what's happening right now is we're having this awakening. Do we all agree that the human species, we're having this a heightened awareness?
We're
sort
going
of
through
like
something
a
for
quickening.
sure.
So if we do have pet owners, how do you think they feel about that?
I mean, there'd be a spectrum, right? There'd be nice dogs and asshole dogs, just like with humans.
That's right.
So
I mean,
I mean, but how do you think?
You get a
Because
nice dog
we
you get
appear
along
to be
with.
domesticated, right? Like the way we live our
This is
lives.
literally the plot from the original Planet of the Apes book. So if you've ever
Never read it.
seen the movies, of course, but the book is so much more French, really.
Our lives are not that different than domesticated animals. You know what I mean?
Basically,
For a lot of people,
everything-
everything is provided
I'm
to
definitely
them.
not
the French,
domesticated. I
the
don't know
French
about
one's
you.
pretty. The French book's pretty believable.
But like nobody opens the food can and puts it in a bowl for you, but you can go to the store and the ground beef is just right there, and you have really, little conception of where it came from and what the whole process was and stuff like that. So it's a level of domestication. That's what I'm talking about. So the question is, is it some humans domesticating others because they're significantly more intelligent and are able to organize that, or is it another species that's domesticating us? But either way, if we're living a semi-domesticated lifestyle and we're becoming much more intelligent, now we're actually worried about where our meat is coming from, then it's like, get your own meat. I'm no longer putting the meat in the stores, so you can just go get it if you're going to complain about it,
Well, it benefits all of us. The
the
reason we do that is everybody benefits from it.
In the original Planet of the Apes, the simian world, a rich couple traveling alone through space rescue and translate a manuscript from a floating bottle. The manuscript was written by a journalist in 2500 who was invited by a wealthy professor to accompany him and his disciple to Betelgeuse. Because they had traveled close to the speed of light, time dilation caused centuries to pass on Earth. During their 2 years in transit, they land their shuttle in a temperate, lush forest planet, which they call Soror, or for sister. And eventually they meet these gorillas fully dressed as hunters, attack the tribe with firearms. And it's not like the 1800s. That was like because they wanted to go low budget with Charlton Heston. It was supposed to be like 1950s, 1960s Earth. And they have typewriters and smoke cigarettes and they watch TV and they're very comfortable. And eventually what they find out happened was a virus that was created by a vaccine. And this is, again, the French Planet of the Apes book, destroyed the population of humans and also killed all of the pets, almost all of the domesticated pets. Is it domestic?
Dude, I got to read a comment. You got some funny commenters. This dude, Brad, said, "You're smart, pug. I used to be a wolf. What have you people done to me?"
Yeah, exactly.
That would be funny. Like, what the hell did you do to me, man?
But basically the point is
my
because
face.
they didn't have enough fourth world, third world humans to treat poorly, and they didn't have any more domesticated animals, so they bring in the apes and then they genetically allow the apes to enhance, and the process of that allows the ape, eventually humans become lazy and the apes take over the homes essentially of the humans and push them out. And that's pretty much, I mean, closer to what I think will happen to humans if we continue to uplift species. I mean, not just that, when we talk about AI talking to pigs or talking to birds, the fact that they're going to say, oh, humans have been arguing over this land for years. And the birds are like, really? That's going to be a fun conversation.
Right.
Yeah. The land that they've been destroying our nests and we've been having fires for 10,000 years or whatever. I think nature, you're going to get some environmentalist AI. I think that's the next major thing that's going to come. It's going to be a less human-centric AI in the process of being a more environmentalist AI.
Let's let the AI make all the decisions, man. Ours suck.
Here's the thing. What if it said we're going to put it up
Point
to
out.
a vote? If AI said we're going to put it up to a vote, I'm going to let every earthling vote, including all of the locusts and all of the whales and all the
Every
bees.
Earth being, cool.
Yeah, we might get to a really complicated point, when all of a sudden things are, especially there are some species that all vote in unison in a singularity,
Yeah,
like
ants.
What are they? What's the subject of the vote? I mean, that's important on if it's whether or not to eat zebras.
Everybody
That's
lives underground.
It seems it's going to be something to do with resources and how the resources are segregated for use by people. That's what it seems like it's happening.
Yeah,
but
I mean, obviously the cautionary tale is Brainiac. You know what I mean? Who diverts all the planet's resources to save himself when he sees an impending doom. He's like, either I could warn the Kryptonians, but they divert all the resources I need to save myself, and I'm the superior being that they created. I'm their masterpiece, so it's more important to save me, and I can always find a new group of people to lead. So Brainiac uploads himself to a satellite instead of warning the Kryptonians that Krypton is going to explode or whatever. So, I mean, there's all kinds of pitfalls in that, but our decision making as humans, like the way we make decisions is ridiculous, and then also the decisions we make pretty ridiculous. And we really just can't make up our mind on things like industrialism. Like there's a big problem. There's a lot of humans who regret the Industrial Revolution, you know, and want to like undo that. Like, where do they vote for that, you know?
I mean, so that's the other question about how much things are symmetrically destinal. So there's at the beginning I mentioned, have you heard of the world crystal theory, world time crystal theory? I think it's called the Planck theories. So basically, world crystal theory, the idea of space itself being a structure at the Planck scale, and the Planck scale is here's, you know, the Hubble scale, here's life, and then here's the Planck scale. So it's a lot smaller. That there might be a symmetry there, and thought might be crystalline in the sense that it reproduces and grows based on touching itself. And that allows for all sorts of mass to occur at larger scales. But at a fundamental Planck scale level, there would still be some symmetry. And then so consciousness touches consciousness, allowing for consciousness to grow. It can grow and it can maintain itself however it needs to. Things can change, genetics can appear. But beyond that, it can also teach other life. It can help other consciousness by interacting with it, grow consciousness by the same way crystalline structures, by being saturated, continue to grow. And this would maybe make it possible that we are in the process of interacting with animals and learning empathy, going to see this start to occur more, that all of a sudden, because we have this idea that no animals ever emerged to be intelligent, when wolves, falcons, squid, they're all capable. It just seems like most of the species that we've ever talked about in mythology as being able to speak. Let's go to dragons for a second. We kill them off. You know, if there's an intelligent, powerful species, we don't want to deal with it.
It's hard
and
to coexist.
Right. I mean, is that not more the case that we might find a point where things
now,
are
if
able
you could
to
ride
merge?
the dragons, if you could domesticate the dragons and ride them around, and they would take orders and stuff like that.
Oh
that
my
would be
God,
ideal.
this is feminism all over again, right? You can't ride the dragons, not
you
anymore.
Think about one of the smartest creatures on Earth is the dolphin. We protect the dolphin. We want to make because we recognize the intelligence of the dolphin, the elephant, the killer
That,
whale.
and also if you don't, that dolphin will rob you and probably rape you. So you have to be very careful about dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the underwater UFOs are probably the dolphins.
Well, there's that. I mean, we've
Probably
talked a bit about the
dolphin
abyss
That'd be
and
awesome.
everything, but I'm
I never
actually
even thought of that.
you wait, backtrack. Maybe I misunderstood you. You don't think that you think the underwater UFOs are dolphins as opposed to maybe like squid?
It's a joke, but yeah, I mean, it would be funny if
I never
dolphins,
thought it either.
you
That's
know,
awesome,
they
man.
finally, you know, because there's a theory that it's like they're like in the center of the earth or whatever, and they're accessing it. So like, there's a whole alien species at the center of the earth that come up through the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some crazy videos, and you know,
That's way more likely
submarine.
than interstellar travel. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
These
convinced.
are like campers
basically-
that just like go out into the wild. Like, oh no, what
So
Or
a Humboldt squid will grow from about a half an inch to 6.5 feet, 2 meters in a year and a half, and it will pull Mexican fishermen out of boats at night. So it's a very dangerous thing, and they will kill fish, just eat fish all the time. They can change their body to look like a rock. They're horrifying, but they die very quickly. They live a year or two, 3 years max.
yeah. As soon
And
as
so
they give birth, they die. The females.
My theory has always been, and even though theory is a strong word for this, but my feeling is that they are sentinels for the larger cephalopods, that there's an entire cast of cephalopods that are literally sentinels for that purpose. And then we never interact with the submarine, super deep, midnight twilight
Brainiac
zone.
squids. I got you.
Brainiac squids. Right. Exactly.
these are just the dumb like outer bodyguard or outer
yeah.
guards.
And these things might live a lot longer. There's no reason why a squid has to die. I mean, the way it looks is that it just chooses to. If we capture a squid, they just stop their heartbeat because they refuse to be captured, which is really interesting.
Forget this. Wow.
Yeah. Right. Not octopods. Octopods, which are cephalopods, they don't kill themselves, but you've seen what they do, right? Where they sneak out of their tanks and then they eat, right? The octopus.
Oh, yeah, I love that story of the octopus sneaking out of his tank, going to the shark tank and eating sharks at night as a midnight snack, then going back in. And people, where'd all the sharks go? And there's, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, why is this octopus pooping so much?
Pretty amazing, really. I
Do
don't
they
know.
poop out of their head?
Shark teeth.
Yeah,
Is that like a
so
spring?
That's also terrifying cephalopod. If you look at
Not be a good thing to pass
the brain,
shark teeth.
because the brain is like a giant donut that goes around the beak, right? And there's this beak, and the idea is it has to liquefy you. So it first you see these arms, and you're like, oh, those arms are pretty far away. If I start swimming now, I might not die. And then this thing sticks out and gives you this little shocker, grabs you, pulls you in. This is often twice as long as the regular arms, pulls you in with a whip. And then the larger squid, actually, their fangs on their tentacles spin, just free 360 degrees spin, and just shred you into a puree. And you have to be, because to be fed, you have to be fed right through the brain. The food has to go through the donut, through the donut hole.
You're talking about like animals like talking, like if like a dragon talked, we'd kill it. But I think it's kind of silly. I think these animals do have language just because they don't speak English. Like humpback whales communicate like across the freaking ocean.
That's right.
Yeah, but communication doesn't imply philosophical thought. There's no evidence one way or the other to indicate where philosophical thought came from.
I think they communicate. They just don't speak in our language.
Like we've never seen in real time an animal evolve into like we were saying, cats are pretty smart, dolphins are pretty smart, but we've never all of a seen they're on the cusp of having philosophical thought. You know.
Yeah, but
we've never seen that with
it's
any
like when
primate
someone,
or anything.
like if we run into an ancient civilization of humans that like talk in clicks and shit, we're gonna be like, oh, those people are stupid. They're not really talking.
They'll have philosophical thought. You know, they'll have
like,
the
what
ideas
are they
of
doing?
like worship and like.
Yeah, but how do we know a dolphin doesn't have philosophical thought?
I mean, I'm pretty
by
convinced
its
dolphins
behavior,
do.
'cause
Dolphins have. You don't think so? Go ahead.
You don't think killer whales? Like look at the behavior of killer whales. They sit there like they have
their
like
behaviors
school
cannot
for their
change
kids.
their behavior. The behavior of beings with philosophical thought is to constantly change their behavior. Beings
What
that
do you
don't
mean?
change their behavior don't have the option to change.
I don't think we can prove that they do or don't, but I would say there's most likely
Right. The weirdest,
it would be the most zen
intelligence.
thing imaginable if they have philosophical thought like us and they choose to never put on clothes, never invent anything, never go anywhere, or do anything.
In the ocean.
No,
So
but you understand what I'm saying. To never change
whales-
anything about yourself, your environment, despite
That
having
stupid
the
dolphin.
thoughts about it all the time.
Whales.
Put a
on a
sweater
hat,
you stupid
dolphin.
dolphin.
But I know I understand what you're saying.
The oldest art we know in the world are whales' bones that were arranged by a cephalopod in a giant pattern in the shape of a star. So
Say that again.
There's actually whale bones that were arranged like by cephalopods in the shape of a star. There's a giant
Really?
bone hinge, yeah, and it's in the shape of
come from.
an octagonal star. I mean, and the more you look at the stories of whales versus squid, you also remember we've talked about whales being giants. They're these giant bipedal animals that are now lying on their bellies in a saturated, maybe after vapor canopy, maybe things have changed, but these are 100-foot tall mammals, right? And they're up against what look like the alien demons, either aliens from the future or demons from the Renaissance medieval period. So it's right now, happening right now, squid versus whale, alien versus predator, and we just ignore it.
I'm just still laughing about dolphins wearing clothes.
I want dolphins on bike. I had some good pictures of dolphins on bikes that were really adorable.
What was the alien versus predator thing? Were you making an analogy to something else?
Just that whales are like human giants or they're giant mammals, and then these aliens, like the squid, we're constantly talking about this crazy foreign thing that has no bones, it's impenetrable, its skin can change form and it's shapeshifter. We're talking about shapeshifter. And it has a beak. I mean, beaks scare me. I don't really like birds because they're starve-crazed reptiles. You know, there's just nothing good about it.
Anything with
frankly.
a beak,
Parrots.
Parrots scare me more because they talk.
warming up
That's
the
it. Toucans and parrots can speak.
I'm hungry.
I got a couple
hate
friends now with birds, and they're real sweeties. You walk over and they tilt their head so you can scratch their head and everything.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
hate
won over.
birds. I'm just saying, you know, like I don't. As a
They
child, I
give
was
you a
bit
little
by a
bit of-
goose and like that.
The only parrot I've ever been
Childhood
around.
trauma. All right.
The only parrot I've ever been around, it was 50-50 whether he'd put his head down so you could pet him or he'd bite your finger.
Right,
You,
yeah.
you wouldn't know.
I
You
hear
just put
you.
your finger in there and figure it out.
Does someone want to do the DMT super soldiers? Give me something on DMT super soldiers.
Well, I mean, this is all an Alex Jones thing where he said like the government has these I guess they call, psychonauts that are like hooked up to DMT drips so that they can stay in for long periods of time.
The Vatican used to have, I've seen books from the Vatican where they would give kids drugs, altar boys, and then they would put them in a Solomon Square and have them possessed, and then they would chronicle what they were supposed to be doing. I want to make a movie about it, designer drugs in the Vatican City. You know, they should really make the movie. But the military doing it
Well, the
Seems
whole idea
slightly
is
more mechanized.
they're getting their orders from this DMT realm the same way the Aztecs got their orders from the gods to like murder people. So it always leads, in Alex Jones' theory, it always leads to human sacrifice.
This sounds very Collins Elite adjacent. This sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
But if we're dealing with like higher dimensional forces and that's their desire, we don't know if maybe that's the best way to go about things for reasons we can't understand.
Who says they're higher dimensional?
All right.
Right?
Well, you know,
Dimensional
who wants to
adjacent.
give up their virgin daughter? Let's do this.
Oh, well, there was
Well,
that
maybe
TV
they
show.
know that like life is like so cyclical and the energy doesn't go anywhere, and they just don't really worry about physical matter or even associate that with life. They're like, yeah, so we have to destroy some physical matter or transmute it. Don't worry, your electricity will go back to the other place and be fine.
Or
you know?
maybe they're just demonic.
Horrible segue, but I remember in the TV show Angel, they find some lady who is like a demon of an insectoid super soldier locust realm, and she's brought to Earth, and everyone who sees her face thinks she's beautiful, and it's instant world peace. The only problem is she has to eat like 100 or 1,000 people a day. But if you think about it, nobody's dying else in the world anymore. So it's a small amount of people to be sacrificed to keep world peace going. And it's really difficult for them to decide, like, should we actually stop this? Because if we stop this, more people will die, and generally all people will suffer.
I think the question is, like, are you going to volunteer yourself?
Right. Who's
Andreas? Are you going to go first? You're going to sacrifice yourself for
maybe not
the rest
first, but I'll be right behind you.
Yeah, I'm going to trust you.
Is she okay with old people? Like, is there a point where like, hey, I'm good with life? Like, if I get to choose how to, like, I'm 115, I've had a time, I'm ready to go. Let's keep this piece rolling. Like, is she okay with
all the people they sacrificed were like young?
Yeah, they never want the
actors from
old people.
Pasadena.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
It's always got to be a young virgin chick or even a young virgin boy. To me, like, you know, I'm a spiritual dude. All this stuff seems demonic to me. It really does.
We're talking to demons beyond the
DMT
veil.
drip.
Well, yeah, when they're talking to the goat man. Who's the goat man again?
Baphomet.
Baphomet. You know, and you know, I mean,
George
I don't
Clooney
know what
was
you've
my
read
first
about Baphomet, but you know, as Alex Jones said, Baphomet's not your buddy. Okay, he's not your friend.
I find that interesting because I did do a talk, and I was actually thinking about inviting him, and I will get him next week, hopefully.
Baphomet?
No, Esoteric Eddie.
Alex Jones.
I'm busy this week, but maybe next Wednesday.
Well, I'm talking to Alex Jones this weekend. We're going to be talking about the DMT stuff.
Yeah, so on a note there, we have this 15th century idea of Christianity, which was like, oh, you know, there were Satanists in the 1500s, and they were so bad that they used to burn them at the stake. You already think there's something kind of weird about this story. And then you look into it and you read what the Bible said at the time. And you know, we talked about Jesus had a donkey head. St. Christopher has a dog head, and he can fly, and has to go to hell, and Jesus has to get Adam and Eve out of hell. And there's all these weird stories. Mother Mary is Harry. There's a Chewbacca Mother Mary in the 15th century Bible. And it doesn't say Lucifer. It talks about Venus. Venus is a Phosphore, the star, but also a goddess, maybe, or something to do with the wife of Yahweh, according to the Sumerian Canaanite original cult. That the Muslims have El Ea for Allah, which is already a he, she kind of god. Forgot where we were going with that.
Have you heard?
I don't think Alex Jones really believes that DMT runs demons.
That was what it was. Baphomet might not be evil.
Baphomet might be really Baphomet. I think it just
might
makes
not be
it
evil.
so easy for him to communicate with his target audience. He's like, it would be so difficult for me to explain to people my real thoughts on Jesus and Satan and stuff like that. But I think Alex Jones is way too much information.
If people were burnt at the stake for if people were burnt at the stake for praying backwards, because that's the other thing. They said, oh, well, what are they doing? They're taking the prayer and they're doing it backwards. So we have to burn them at the stake. What we know now is that Etruscan is mirrored backwards. Latin is actually, they've taken the books essentially and they've duplicated the letters backwards, and they've created a new, it sounds like Latin, which came later, is backwards Etruscan. So the Christians are praying backwards, and these other groups who refuse to join them might have been the original Christians. And what do we call them today? Baphomet worshiping Satanists. And that's what the Knights Templar are in trouble for originally. And they're told, oh, the Demolay, they are, you know, Demolay was a pedophile and a child rapist who was burned at the stake, according to the Catholic Church, who rescinded that. And according to the Masons, Demolay was, you know, there's a Boy Scout leader because he was wrongfully burnt. You know, so there's two sides of this story. It could very well be that Baphomet was this white goddess character, and that is exactly what isn't evil. It might be that we've got this completely backwards, and that our version of Christianity where we have Christ as Mithra, the Mithra cult. Have you seen the pictures of Mithra?
Have you heard about when the Virgin Mary showed up to the Aztecs right before they were about to go kill all the Spanish?
Don't recall that. No.
Well, it's
Or
a
Virgin Guadalupe. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah. So the Aztecs finally had enough of all these white people, and they were all like gathering together, and they were about to go slaughter all the white people, and the Virgin Mary appeared, and
in a cloak.
so
He opens his cloak and the
Quetzalcoatl-
roses fall out. in her
who was
face,
the king? Who's a Quetzalcoatl or whatever?
Quetzalcoatl.
And she was like,
yeah.
I stepped on the serpent's head, like he was a serpent.
Ah.
So yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, but
I
you've
just,
also got the Spanish were coming over from the Muslims, and the Moors had this crescent moon. She's stepping on the crescent moon. She's representing Phosphore. She is Baphomet. This is Lucifer.
It's just odd
That's
how
the
all these
thing.
people
That's
that
the thing. This is Lucifer. This is Baphomet. According to that tradition,
blasphemy.
no, but I
You're
love
going to-
Mother Mary. I'm just
You're
saying.
going to
they've
hell,
taken-
dude. And
But
handbasket.
Baphomet is the mistranslation of the goddess of Phosphore, of Venus.
All
This
I know
is
is
that. That's what the
all these
symbol is.
civilizations that get into psychedelics and they start talking to goat men, all of a sudden they want to murder your pretty little daughter. Okay, and I don't think that's the good guys. All right. So
Yeah,
unless
you're probably
it's awesome. Oh, yeah, take my daughter and eat her heart. You're the good
Well,
guy.
Christianity is as close as we've ever had to a world religion. Like there's been more Christians than there's ever been any other practicers of any other religion.
Really?
And
More
that
than
hasn't.
Islam?
Huh? Yeah. Well, no. At its peak, Christianity is more than Islam is right now, but Islam's catching up. But it's because you have to remember, like most of Africa and stuff was. Anyways, but it doesn't make the world a more closer to the teachings of Jesus. Like having more Christian. So I don't know. It is possible that the entire religion is inverted. I think the Garden of Eden story is inverted. Like the god of the garden who wanted to prevent the knowledge of good and evil, to me, is the bad guy. And the serpent that's like, here's how you get the knowledge and get yourself on the level of the gods, is the good guy. And God's warning is don't eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge or you'll become like us. And like, that's a problem. The same as like your cat becoming smart like you. It's like, I'm not going to let you live in my garden if you become smart like me. Like you're going to have to go do your own thing. You know what I mean?
Or that could just be a made up story.
Well, the whole thing could be made up stories, and most likely is. But I mean, that there's still metaphors in it that are canonical to existence. You know what I mean? Like knowledge of good and evil, whether or not the story is a fabrication or a metaphor, is still something that has severe implications in real life. But who do you think who's the good guy and who's the bad guy in the Garden of Eden?
Go ahead, Mr. Douglas.
Well, I was about to talk about Baphomet for a
No,
moment.
go ahead. We keep cutting him off. You got to be able to talk more. Go ahead.
Baphomet, just as another side thing, the magical Egypt people that are studying the brain and the imagery that mirrors Egyptian statues, they found a level in the brain that actually looks almost exactly like the way Baphomet is drawn. So Baphomet, along with Egyptian gods and goddesses, could very well be mirroring positions, views, ways of looking at parts of the brain. And these parts of the brain correlate with certain states of heightened or differentiated consciousness.
And I would say the cervix is also important to represent. Like there's a lot
Absolutely,
of things where it was against. It was so clearly against. It was actually better for them to worship a terrifying giant-titted goat. That was better for them than to worship a woman. At that point in history, if you worshipped a woman, you were worse off than worshiping goat guy, right? Because Jesus was a donkey, so it's okay.
Yeah.
No, there's a history. So what we really have to watch out for, and Andreas, I really appreciate you bringing up all that symbology because it is so hard for us in the present for us to look back and see through the eyes of the culture and context in which they were presented and were experiencing. We see it through all of our historical information that has been filtered through many different agendas at many different times and has come to us now here with our modern understanding. We're able to search quickly and look at these images, but what context, what personal experience were they interacting with this kind of stuff with?
Have any of you done DMT?
No, I'd like to.
Has DMT done you, bro? Sorry.
No, I've never done it. Andreas, you've done DMT, right?
Yeah, I remember the very first time I did it, though. It was really terrifying, actually, because I didn't really prepare myself and thought it was going to be super, colorful and fun and everything. I didn't take very much, and instead I just saw myself. And at the time, I wore a lot of bright colors. I was wearing all black, and I grabbed myself and felt myself grab my shoulder. And I was like, don't F with me, but further. Wow. And then in my mind, I ran home and threw myself underneath myself, like of a pile of myself, and it was just this really terrifying, shattering experience.
Did you blast off? Because that's what they say. You have to take like 3 hits and hold them in as long as you can.
That was
actually blast.
That
off.
was later in my life, a year or two later that I blasted off.
Did you run into any entities?
Yeah, so I've talked about this before a bit, but in Venice Beach, when I was living at the same time, Ian Crossland and I were living at the house, there was this crazy 7, I think it was 7, maybe it was 9, but I think it was 7 white witches, basically, like these like
ladies.
Yeah, and it just, they were kind of dancing, and it felt like they were kind of politely waiting to decide about me, kind of a vibe. And that I think is a big thing with a lot of people, is that they're, what's that show, Moon Knight, he gets these weird messages from God or from the Egyptian gods, but they're annoyed by him because he's not doing it properly. He's not respectfully going to the thing. I think that's a major problem with every drug, salvia, for example. A lot of people just completely exploit and abuse it, and got really upset about that. And I don't think that's the way salvia used to treat Sweat Lodge Lakota, for instance, you know? So I think DMT is also doing that to people. Ayahuasca rituals, similarly, people are going down to do bank trading. They want to have a clairvoyance before a bank trading. So I do wonder more and more about some of the people that take DMT that are doing this.
Yeah, they might not respect that because you're like kind of disrespecting the whole experience, right? But
have you heard of Tempelos? Keep going. Sorry.
What gets me is that so many people see the same sort of like figures like Baphomet, you know, the DMT elves. Is kind of odd because there can be people from different cultures that don't even know who the hell Baphomet is, but yet they see Baphomet.
Yeah, I think
it's
the
weird.
Beast,
it's like
that's very,
I don't know.
What's that movie, Altered States? You know, it's a natural kind of thing that you've got Pan, which is a human with a goat body, and the vice versa, which is the beast's mind with the human body, right? So it's kind of an inversion, because a lot of time we think of humanity as a tempered beast or a subdued beast. I was going to just really randomly and try to quickly go through my rant on Temple Loss, because there was a schizophrenic guy who is unfortunately racist, which kind of ruins it for me. But beyond that, he was into God, and he thought that he built this operating system as the third temple of God, and that he was God's voice on earth. And so he built this operating system that you can download and you can run on your computer. You have to build a whole, instance for it, but it's for occult medium work, and you can speak to the spirits this way, but it requires tribute. And I think this is an important concept that we're missing. Probably when people do these rituals, they're not doing their tribute, and then it's upsetting these DMT.
They gotta cut the heart out of a virgin child.
You didn't bring your virgin, bro.
Yeah, or
I can guess why though. If they exist in a non-material space, why are they going to want to give you the time of the day if you think materiality is important? So they would want to see you execute the most sacred thing materially, which would be like a child, an innocent child, just to see that you're on the level to even be worth communicating with non-physical entities.
That is a very interesting theory. I like that. But also, though, when you practice any kind of magical interaction with discarnate spirits, gods, or any other kind of entities you're trying to contact, an offering is certainly something pretty standard. It doesn't have to be a child or any kind of death per se, bleeding out. It can just be a piece of food and some water, some coins, something that you value. So, but that's why I said I like that point. Sorry,
like Joe Boo and
I mean,
a little whiskey and a cigar.
There you go.
Wicker Man is all about how they haven't had a decent virgin Christian in a while, and that's what really works best, right, for their atonement sacrifice, right? And so I think I brought up before the idea of Burning Man, because there aren't any virgin Christians or any of the sort. You just have everyone's passionate art project, anything that their actual truth, passion, innocence, honesty is going into, that they're destroying in the process, in this sort of communal sacrifice of their collective innocence. So it does seem like there's a connection there, and it would be kind of a disservice to pretend that it's all good spirits, right? What's the pink Ouija board?
Well, what about the dude that ran into the Burning Man and died? That was a bit of a sacrifice. He sacrificed himself.
Right. You should talk to David more about that. I mean, so I forget the whole story, but I remember that he was in the military. Yeah, it's crazy that they did this. I feel like the idea of a Ouija board for kids, but also, of course, pink is the Krishna consciousness activation color.
Haven't they seen The Exorcist? Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah, The Exorcist totally should make you scared of Ouija boards.
Yeah.
I mean, but people are doing this. They're talking to spirits, and that's
People are
a lot
not
of what
good
I
with
think
their
scares me the
rituals.
most about drugs is the talking to spirits aspect.
That's why I would never do DMT. I don't want to meet Baphomet. I'm good.
I'm not scared to talk to spirits. I'm just afraid that they're going to tell me true things I can't handle about myself. That's why I don't do DMT, or I don't do hallucinogens at all anymore.
Or you could get locked in a space prison for 1,000 years. That's some people have had that experience where they felt like they were in prison being
They've
tortured.
lived lives. That's right.
Oh, but this is kind of cute though, because you have to move
years.
her hands over her dress. All right, I moved on, but
it's pink. What can you be afraid of?
there was some politically incorrect stuff that I thought was interesting. What's in the bag? They're talking about this. Do you guys have thoughts about what's in the bag?
I've heard many different theories. Yeah, I've heard mushrooms. I've heard mushrooms, basically interstellar seeds.
Bird seed.
Yeah. DNA, like it's a representation of the DNA splicing that they did.
The secret of life.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's some kind of a power source, like a battery or something.
Power source. I like that.
Maybe they have, I'm always interested in the theory of getting more electricity, a more electric charge in your brain. They've done, I'm sure you guys have heard all those experiments, and Joe Rogan has talked about it, and how nootropics work and stuff. Just increasing the electrical charge in your brain,
Hole is a very dangerous place. You should be careful.
Well, it increases your cognition ability, like
what's the title of this 4chan gene editing?
I was getting there. So 4chan sissification. Let's start with the sissification. So first off, it's 4chan eugenics, and so there was this psyop, and if you've noticed, 4chan does a lot of psyops. So people will joke about, they're like, they make you post without a VPN from your IP address so they can track you while you talk about with these crazy people racism, anti-Zionism, all these things that probably you don't even agree with or want to be a part of the conversation of, but they try to make you look like a bad guy just by honeypotting you.
Guilt by association.
But the other thing is, how many people even believe that stuff? So you've got people that are saying, they post really racist stuff, but are they just the government that are trying to entrap you? And then there's this group, there was the femboy cult, and there's an interesting documentary on it actually, talking about how in the Robot 9001 group, they started convincing NEETs, which is a group of people considered not in education, nor in employment, nor in training, right? So they're just kind of out of society, 19 to 35-year-old living at their parents or something, NEETs.
Basement
dwellers, exactly. But they call themselves robots, right? Because they're part of the Robot 9001. And convincing them that they should transgender, not because they believed that they were always women or that they, any of that, just that their life would improve in a society where they were considered feminine. And continually, you can consider this a kind of cyberbullying, but it's definitely far more convincing people, have you tried becoming a woman yet? Have you tried the pink pill yet? Et cetera, et cetera. And enough, all of the effort that went into this, all of the people that were actually convinced by this. And a lot of people were scared on 4chan saying, dude, we got to stop this. This is crazy that this is happening. But how do you stop this concerted effort? And people started digging and finding there were groups of people that were doing this on purpose, and posting pictures of traps, as they're referred to, or convincing transgendered persons to convince people that they would be happier if they were transgender. And this is working. There's a lot of people that were not transgender before. Yeah, on 4chan. But then they also go raid Discord groups and everything else, Facebook.
But then
groups.
You also see in society, like there's a lot of, this is happening to like a lot of kids too. Like they see the attention people get when they come out as trans, or all of a sudden they're like put on a pedestal and like, oh, you're so brave.
Celebrated brave. Yeah.
And you get all this attention, and you're looked up to because you're a brave little thingy.
So you've got eugenics on one hand because you're convincing people to castrate or sterilize themselves. So it's actually it's grooming an entire part of society, but it's also sociologically a form of grooming, which is terrifying.
Yeah. Also, men are treated like shit too. And people are like, oh, you mean if I do this, I'm not going to be treated like a shitty man, like some piece of shit? So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. The fact is, it's showing though that it's a legitimate concerted effort. Here's examples of people that are doing it on purpose. Maybe we could have said before, oh, it's plastic surgeons trying to make money. They're just convincing people that they believe it so that they don't really care, but they want to. This seems more than that. This is not an accident at this point. Here are people that they're spending their days 9 to 5 or actually longer, probably.
Do you believe people like Bill Gates, like one of their biggest priorities is population control and getting population down? And if you can convince a bunch of men to basically sterilize themselves or live a lifestyle that's not going to produce children, well, it's a win for the population control movement.
Right. But how many of the people you think in 4chan are controlled by Bill Gates or the deep state? I mean, there's clearly a lot. Right?
I mean, who knows what the hell they're up to while they're doing their little meetings.
Directly or indirectly.
They're getting, I mean,
I knew people that worked when I was in YOLO, which is actually a place in California by Davis, Davis University students that were first generation Americans, and their parents were from, well, I guess it doesn't matter, but basically a lot of people in Davis that I met were learning how to run information security for the government, were involved with the military, had their, their, what's it called? We get money from sponsored. What's that called? They give you money to go to school again? Scholarship. They give you a scholarship.
Grant, scholarships.
Yeah, and in order to do that, they would be also learning. And these kids were obsessed with 4chan, and so they were getting into 4chan, and then they were working for the government to manipulate into 4chan, even back in 2007 to 10. So I mean, it's always been this way. And people are continually going to a place where the government sees everything. But the question is, how much of it is just completely planned? I mean, the idea of these rage posts against different races or, any of it.
What if the government is literally putting all these people into the DMT realm, putting them on a drip, and they're getting all of their orders from the DMT realm?
I mean, so who do you think's on the other line? Do you think it's locusts? Like who's running?
Satan.
So what is Satan like to you? What is all this? Because he's evil, I guess, right? What is evil to you?
It's whatever it is. It's the spirit that wants your freaking virgin child to perish.
Can I ask a question about that cosmology?
I don't know. Go ahead. Yeah.
Then like all the technological progress and stuff we make like that's good and removed from Satan, but like DMT, that's like a different kind of technology, you know what I mean? But like that specifically is like the doorway to Satan, but everything else we're doing to change ourselves from our animal nature is all like positive. Like
it might not be, it might be just the doorway to the afterlife, and that opens you up to anything. So you could talk to a good spirit or you could talk to a bad spirit.
But like all the other changes we make to our environment and ourselves, is that like guided by just our nature or by like a good force like God? Or and then is there other influences besides Satan, or are we being influenced to make all the changes we're making already? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I don't know, dude, but I would say it's probably a bit of both. If that's even a real thing, it's probably a bit of both. I mean, it depends. Some people are, a little more wicked than other people. So I don't know. If Ted Bundy's going to the DMT realm, who do you think he's talking to?
Yeah, I think that you would be. I think if you thought of yourself as evil, you would be destroyed by something far more evil. And if you thought of yourself as good, you'd be humbled by something that was far more good. That's kind of the ideas that were perpetuated, muted pastels in this really neon reality. And
Mr. Douglas has got something to say.
Yeah. I was actually, Andreas, you made that point. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that, and it goes back to our discussion about intention and thought and motivation, and how we actually have a lot more agency in this situation than is led on. And if we are to be put in the DMT drip, the opportunity may arise for us to be influenced by something that does not have our highest good at its highest agenda. And we can reject that or accept that. I would imagine that the government, if it's putting you in a DMT drip, has its own agenda, and you are not really that important in that agenda other than getting its agenda out here. So if the DMT drip by the government is bringing Satan out, if it is Satan, and because Satan is a more modern kind of confluence of ideas than it really is this entity. There is an Ahriman, there is the opposition. You go back in time far enough, you do see this idea of a trickster that doesn't necessarily have negative influence, but certainly not positive influence. But yeah, so I don't think the government really has our best intentions at heart. I also did want to say though, surprise. I did want to say though, when it comes to this woo-woo stuff and the government and the DMT drip and otherwise, there is evidence from FOIA requested documents where they have psychic like defenders holding up psychic shields 24/7 against other psychic spies from breaking in to, I mean, really wild stuff. And so I wonder if the DMT drip has something to do with that. But they've got people plugged in and hooked up and, putting out those like psychic vibe shields all of the time, just in case.
I mean, all it took is probably one like high-level CIA guy to do DMT and blast off and have a conversation with something that he thought was like an interdimensional alien. Like, holy shit, we got to use this. The government, we need to get whatever knowledge they have. Probably
are you familiar with the Collins Elite story?
No, sir.
So Collins Elite is pretty much this minus the DMT, but that they took Jack Parsons' work in the desert and replicated it, refined it, started regular contact with something. And these entities that they are interacting with are giving them information, trying to lead them down a path. But the interactions ultimately lead into death, some kind of awful experience, whether psychological or physical. The issue is, however, that it is couched solely within Christian terminology. Okay. And human beings have been around far longer than the Bible. And the Bible itself is a compiled book of a whole bunch of different stuff that's been manipulated quite a bit.
But isn't it odd how similar, even if you go back to the Egyptians, how similar all these stories are? They're just slightly different. The characters are pretty similar.
I'd say there are big differences. I think that in its essence, there is a positive force and a force that is destructive if you were to give yourself over to it. But the reduction of pray over here is good, pray over here is bad, it tends to be more easily manipulatable by forces that don't really care. They're looking for power.
Isn't it Ra that's like basically the same story as Jesus or something like that?
It's similar. There is a died and born again.
Virgin, born of a virgin.
I was thinking Robert Anton Wilson. My bad.
There's Moses and
I mean, when did Jesus get castrated? When did they take Jesus' penis and throw it in the river? And I don't think it was in the Bible.
Right? Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are very different. I think is important. But
I think the big difference.
What happens is we say, "Oh yeah, what is this religion you're trying to teach us?" Oh, it's kind of like Ra. It's the Pepsi Ra.
The big difference in Egyptian religion is that none of the gods are bad guys. Like Set isn't a bad guy. The underworld isn't a bad thing. You know what I mean? That's a very big part of the Christian.
That's a huge good and bad. Good and bad is not an Egyptian idea.
As opposed to just existing and serving a function like everything else in life does. Like God created Satan to serve some kind of function. It's like a balance to something.
That's a huge one.
I think it's a dangerous way of thinking. It could be true or not, to think that some things, everything the machinery of existence continues to go on unabated by our own personal tragedies, which we consider to be inappropriate or bad or better to avoid, but yet somehow everything hangs together perfectly and continues to function. So the Egyptian thinking on that is like darkness is necessary to have light. All these things are like balancing forces. Whereas the Abrahamic worldview is God literally created bad guys just for the sake of being evil, and it would be better to get rid of them. Everything would function even better.
Did he create them just for the sake of being evil, or did they rebel?
Well, no, I'm exactly the rebellion. Yeah, that's.
I mean, do you believe in evil? Do you believe in that there is evil?
I don't know. I don't know.
I always go to Ted Bundy, but do you think Ted Bundy? Do you think that's
like I'm saying? I don't know. It could be a balancing. It could be a balancing force. Like even it could be. I hope it's not. I hope I'm good and there's good and stuff like that. But it could.
What is it in you that makes you decide to be good?
I'm not really sure. They're like
is a lion evil though? Is the thing I think in nature,
right? Exactly. Yeah, is a lion evil?
You see things.
I don't think a lion's evil, but there are probably evil lions. Like if a lion is just murdering for enjoyment and not to eat to survive,
dolphins rape for enjoyment.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if evil is, it could be evil. Let's say, let me try a different approach and say that, yes, there is evil, but evil is a necessary component of existence. And if you remove it, you don't have resistance. You don't have existence at all.
Can't have light without dark.
I don't
Like,
know,
you think we
man.
could expunge Satan and life would just be way better for humanity? Like,
I think we could
Remember
definitely
Hitchhiker's
be
Guide to the
better people.
Galaxy?
We could
So
definitely
Hitchhiker's Guide to
I
the
think we could
Galaxy.
definitely be better people. Yes, I can agree with that.
Hitchhiker's
Say
Guide
that
to the
again?
Galaxy.
what
has been
about
on my
night?
mind
What if we
recently.
eliminate sleep and night and just everything that slows us down?
I'd go crazy.
Well,
Right,
that's
that's
not
what I feel
evil,
about
though.
Breatharians. I feel
Okay.
Breatharianism is kind of it's at least unnatural, and so good and evil aren't necessarily the best way to look at order and chaos. Order and chaos have maybe good and evil in them, but order and chaos are
This
the things.
is elitism, right? There's a way we can organize existence better than it is in its natural state, and we'll take the steps necessary to get to that point.
What I mean is you could be less selfish and actually care about the damage you cause the other people. You know,
True.
more selfless. I think
In
is what it
Hitchhiker's
comes
Guide
down
to the
to.
Galaxy, they try to do this thing when they ask this super deep thought computer, "What is the greatest answer to the to life, to everything
Life,
else?"
the universe, and everything. Yes, yes.
42.
Spoiler alert from 1978, by
Yeah.
the way, is that it's 42, and then
Right.
they're like, but that's not great. We wanted to have a great understanding. Well, you didn't say you need to understand it, but if you needed to have the
And
answer,
it took like 400 years for it to get the answer too.
it was
so
like
it's
no,
not
it
like
was
they can just do it
7
again.
million years,
Okay.
7 million, and 7.5 million, and then but it's going to take way longer to get the question because you need to have the right question to understand what 42 is the answer to, and that seems kind of silly and all. But now I kind of feel like I understand it because what do they do again with the spoiler alert from 1978? Can I tell you? I'm like
This
scared to
ties in
tell
with
you.
dolphins perfectly too. since
They
we're talking-
make reality, and reality has the question because it is all possible things happening in reality that is life, and in that is where you find out the answer is 42. But you can't know it unless you ask the full question that it is 42 and really understand it. I think that's what we're getting to a point of where we have an answer, but we have to really fulfill all of the stretches of existential reality we can have. And we're not going to get there by telling lions they can't eat zebra, right? We're not going to get there that way. We're not, and evil isn't going to be something that we can just erase, as well as we can force people to be a way. And that's really what AI and Neuralink and Singularity, that's actually more scary, is it's going to force everyone to be good, right? Because they're going to fit in what society says is okay. You're not going to need to do drugs because you'll be genetically happy and neuralinked happy. You won't ever want to jaywalk because you're always walking right where you need to be. It'll be Kantian.
Yeah,
So I
but
mean,
what
that's
about
terrifying, right?
what about that person? Just like somebody who, I mean, this sounds terrible, but there are probably people out there who would like to break into somebody's house and murder them and their family and rape them and yada yada yada. There might be people who want to jaywalk just because, hey, it's fun to just do bad things, you know?
That exactly. And if we take that away from people, that will make the world a better place. Is that what you want?
Yeah,
Not
well, it'd
necessarily.
be nice if I had no risk of somebody breaking into my house and murdering me. I mean,
Yeah, but then you would have no risk of ever being able to choose to jaywalk or whatever that comes down to for you.
yeah, but
know?
is jaywalking? I mean, yeah, I mean,
It's not necessarily jaywalking. Maybe it's chewing gum at the beach in Singapore. I don't know, but like it's something that you wanted to do at sunset.
yeah,
You know?
I don't know. I mean, that gets a little in the weeds.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find
But
that
I mean,
a
it's
big
not in
part
the
of what we
weeds when
think
we're
of as
talking about.
evil.
I
Evil
mean,
is doing basically what you're saying when you say something's
there's a
evil,
big
by the way, is
difference
doing something other people don't want you to do, right?
I
So
mean, if somebody broke into your house tonight, Andreas, and killed you and your entire family, would you not consider that evil?
I mean, I would definitely consider that evil, but that would be my
Okay, so that's
my
what we're
feeling
talking
on
about.
it because
Evil
the
exists.
reason I think it was evil, I think it was really not fair. I think it was really like
Hey,
terrible.
man, don't
All
kill
these
me and
things,
my
because
family.
I
That's not
want
nice.
to be alive, right? So that's my
Yeah.
selfish pursuit.
Evil exists, but it doesn't really tell you anything to know that if you don't understand the bigger system, which I don't,
Right.
and we can't, that evil exists in and how it functions in the larger system, which all works as far as we know. There's no other existence that works this good, you know? So it's like, I don't know if you can just remove these things, whether they are evil or not. We don't understand the purpose for them existing. Why does the pressure always come up? Why is there always attention? Why is it no matter how good things are, people start having the worst instincts? Sometimes when times are the best, people have the worst instincts, you know? So like they say, hard times make strong men, and, you know, and so on and so forth.
I know you can find instances of people becoming serial killers and you can go, oh, they had a great childhood, they had this and that. But most of the time, these are people who went through hell. They were abused by their parents. They were sexually abused, physically
Maybe.
abused.
I mean, we're only counting the ones that get caught. What about the Biden family?
On average, most of the time, people that
Maybe.
become that messed up, it's because they were treated terribly. They were abused. Like a dog that you kick the shit out of at a young age becomes a vicious dog 99% of the time. Doesn't mean a dog that might be bad in the head or messed up in the head that wasn't abused might start biting people too. I mean, but it's more rare for that to happen. Usually there's a causation that causes people to become like that. It's like
they all start off as innocent babies, right? Too. It's like a
until
trip to
you
remember
start
that.
Until 2024, how human gene editing is moving on after CRISPR baby scandal. You guys heard about the CRISPR baby scandal where they
Has that
made
lady
sure a
been
baby
gene edited? Is that what you're
they
telling
didn't
me?
they didn't want the baby to be born with HIV, and so essentially it allowed for a baby to be born without HIV, and this was rushed, and the person who did it in China was arrested, and it was terrible. But now they're in the process of saying, oh, well, there's new ways that we can do this. And let's start with getting rid of sickle cell anemia, because this is honestly, if you're going to hit something, you should hit something that's
disease.
Yeah, right. I'm glad it's not a rich people disease. I'm glad that it's black people. Sickle cell anemia is mostly, African Americans, actually. So it's fair. It's a good thing that we're hitting sickle cell. But the problem is maybe not. Maybe sickle cell is something we don't completely understand, because it did develop as an evolutionary adaptation to survive malaria, because malaria cannot hook around the blood cell if the sickle cell is open. And there's some value to it. If there's a giant malaria outbreak, for instance, sickle cell anemia means you're probably going to survive that. But they're in the process of removing it. And so gene editing, you're going to start seeing all these new gene sequences removed. And you remember the videos where they talked about how they can sequence and find common sequences in populations that are not ethnic. It's a discrete similarities in gene sequences. Maybe in all fanatics, they seem to have a similar gene sequence. And how quickly with 23andMe, they're going to be able to start targeting not just sickle cell anemia, which is, the Trojan horse, but other genes that maybe make you reactionary or a free thinker. Yeah, disagreeable.
I don't like it. Leave my genes alone.
I just feel like with this and everything, you got to do everything or nothing. There's no way you can be like, we want to have walls and electricity and Netflix, but we don't want to have virtual reality. We don't want to have Neuralinks, but we do want to have flying cars. Like, you don't get to pick and choose. Either you're a grazing animal or you're going to do everything that you can think of doing. You know what I mean? So it's like all these bad ideas, are tied to all the good changes that we've made, so you want to live
grow
in
giant
electricity,
corn,
but you don't want AI. It doesn't work that way. Like, like the way you don't get AI is you're like a dolphin. You're kind of smart, but you don't do anything. If you do anything, you're going to wind up with everything. Don't you think?
I still think, you got to pick and choose. Not everything's going to
be
good.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to be good.
I think that is the crux of our position, I think, is choice. And that's why, what compels us to be good. It's that I would much rather choose to be a good person and help somebody if I can, and it helps me. I'm also selfish. I also want to help myself. But I am far more compelled. Maybe it's because of my upbringing and my environment, but I'm far more compelled to be a nice person to another person, because that's how I'd like that person to treat me, than otherwise. It is that choice. And that is where we have still the ultimate freedom. But that freedom can be taken away from us if we do not understand all of the opportunities and choices that we have before us. If our mindsets are set so that you have to either pick everything or nothing, and that's it, that is a false choice. We have the ability to choose only chocolate on Wednesdays and everything else is going to be vanilla, or I'm doing sherbet and get the hell out of my store. We have the ability to choose. That is what makes us so amazing and so potentially wonderful in shaping our future in the way that we would like it, without as much expression of the rapey guys that are coming into our houses and killing us.
Yeah,
that may be true for sure. I do believe that we do have free will and we can make these choices. I guess what I'm more trying to say is, whatever you can go through as a species and as an individual, you're going to go through all of it. You know what I mean? So as a species, before we can make these choices about what technologies we want to keep and which we don't, we're going to make every possible mistake with all of them, starting with mRNA injections and all the way down the line. We got to go through all of it.
You have to experiment.
It's not going to be every
what works and what doesn't,
and it won't be every human at once. That's kind of the beautiful thing about the conservative liberal dynamic, why it exists at all, and why we pretend we hate it, so that we can have the sophist rhetoric every night that we like to have, which is how much should we completely divorce ourselves from the past. You know, like today is a new day. We could completely forget everything we knew yesterday. If we did that, we might end up wolf people, you know, without the ability to speak. So we also should try. And a lot of people along the way will say, well, I really want to remember and honor and save what my family did. You know, they taught me how to, you know, collect food stamps or whatever, hunt and gather, you know, Coca-Cola cans or whatever it is. And so for the next 20 years, I want this to continue to exist for my lifestyle. But those things do dissipate. And in certain areas, they disappear. You've got people, you know, people had Blockbuster in parts of the country way into the 21st century.
The one thing that's interesting, it's in the second volume of Secrets of Power, Ingo talks about axioms and little sayings, Aesop's fables, how those bits of wisdom actually transcend civilizations and eons of humanity, because there is intrinsic value in some of these bits of knowledge. I hate to bring up the moral of the fable of the lion and the mouse is a kindness is never wasted. Lion is caught in a net, mouse rolls up, hey, you're trapped. Lion says, yo, get me out of here. The mouse says, cool, if you remember me. Oh wait, no, I just reversed it. So a lion was sleeping, mouse runs up, lion's like, I'm gonna eat you. And the mouse said, wait, if you let me go, I might help you later. And the lion's like, whatever, peace out. But he leaves him. He lets him live. He doesn't eat the mouse. Then the lion gets trapped. Mouse rolls up and says, hey, I hear you're trapped. You need some help? And the lion's like, yo, get me out of here. And the mouse says, okay, because you let me live, I will help you out. A kindness is never wasted.
Beautiful story.
I saved that. I think I saved that.
That was good, yeah.
You said earlier, like what makes you not want to do evil? To me, it's like our conscience, man. Like for me, I don't know if it was because it was the way I was raised, but if I do something to somebody that I know causes harm, that's a painful experience for me. I'll never, I don't get over that very easily. So it's like we're almost pre-programmed to want to do good. And I don't know if it's programmed that like we're born with.
I don't know if everyone's born with it. That's the other thing. I think, or some people could lose it with head injury, probably.
Yeah, there's also mental disorder too. So it's not always just evil. Sometimes people just don't have that empathy in their brain. They don't have that conscience, and that might just be, like you said, a brain injury or just some sort of chemical imbalance or something. So there is that too. And is that evil, or is that a version of sickness? You know.
Right, exactly. I think that's an important thought.
It's not all just,
a lot of our idea of evil is.
It's also important to remember that like the
that,
villain is an archetype, and like the chaotic evil villain who just does evil just for the sake of it, just to see the pain, the expression of pain on the face of his victim or whatever. Those are archetypes. So we're talking about not only limiting behavior, but removing archetypes from the human story, which is why I feel like it's kind of like a, you know, in your own personal life, if you can be a good person, you'll enjoy your life more anyhow. But I feel like the evil has to express itself somewhere. Like you can't just expunge it.
Well, I hope it expresses itself at your house and not mine.
I see a lot of it, and I'm scared. You know, I think about eugenics and how people are they're like, oh, we would need to stop this thing, and then they're saying, okay, well, let's take all the aggressive guys who are over a certain height and put them in war with each other, so they all die, and then we have an entire generation without aggressive people. Especially get them young, you know, like so they haven't bred yet. That'll just stop the next generation entirely. I mean, these little things that they do to make sure that they don't have entire populations of people's genes producing anymore, that's a significant problem. And we don't look at it like that. We don't really see like, wow, the future is not protecting humanity or all the different facets of diverse humanity that could exist.
That's the thing. We talk about all this technology that's coming out. There's going to be a point where we don't really need humans. So like the power class, the ruling class, what is their incentive to keep us around? We're just at that point, we're just useless eaters. We're just in the way. We're just blocking their view, you know, from their beautiful mansions. So yeah, anyway, I don't know.
I think they want a certain number and not to exterminate everyone but their own bloodlines, you know, probably because they need a breeding stock to avoid inbreeding, or maybe they won't even be reproducing that way anymore. But also, I think once you get to that level of intelligence where you're capable of like engineering reality and society and stuff like that, you probably have actually good information about like balance or what is too many humans. Like maybe there is such a thing as too many humans. I hope not, you know, but these people who make these decisions, you know, and engineer the world have a lot more information and knowledge than us. And I don't know if they have wisdom or not, but they all seem to behave in ways that we find repugnant, even though they're the ones that are the smartest. So that's kind of disconcerting.
Are they always the smartest though?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't.
engineering is a good
and
test.
Power.
Well,
those are
engineering
two
is a good
different
test. If you're bringing things into the world that didn't exist before, you're like, and like incredible engineering feats, like a dam or like a stealth bomber or something like that. I would say yes, that's a good measure of intelligence.
Yeah, but
And
the
cooperation.
We do have
if
a
all the
problem
elites
where we
were just
often
engineers, that'd be a
underestimate.
different story. But they
We
use
do
engineers.
underestimate the elite a lot because we're like, oh, they're all idiots, and it's true. A lot of them are.
It
but not
really
all.
scares me that I hate the decisions they make, but yet they're the ones that are capable of great things.
At very least,
I would
think what's
disagree with
maybe
that
not good,
100%.
but great.
I would
they have,
disagree
they,
with that.
they have the most effectivity because they have the most power. But I would say at very least, what's terrifying is that it's not that we always disagree. There are moments where you say to yourself, oh, I can see how that makes sense. And as you're trying to build your own alternative to the New World Order, it's less and less that it's this black and white, East and West, and more that the tug of war is bringing to a center place between both arguments where you're saying, oh, well, I can see where you're coming from. We do want to have certain liberties, or I can see where you're coming from. We do need to make sure we don't lose this. We're not actually ending up in a place where it's a war between two sides anymore. It seems like we're actually ending up in a place where I think people are becoming each other. I think that's what I see more and more. I think the left is becoming the right is becoming the left. They don't really have issues they stand on each other's values.
The whole population control ideology I just completely disagree with, because what ends up happening, we always find a way. And we have more people that's more intelligent people that are going to figure something out, as opposed to aborting them or whatever the hell way we get rid of them.
That's their conception of finding a way. Like they're like, we're finding a way. Our way is to get rid of 7/8 of the people.
But see, the way
I'm not supporting it. I don't want it either.
Right. The way that they are finding it, however, has two sides every single time. They are in power. They are going to make every single decision to do what it is that they're planning to do to better the human race, but also always remain in power. Always. They are not going to give that. They are not selfless. So their decision-making is tainted in that respect.
It's true, yeah, especially because their decision-making process is utilitarianism. You know what I mean? But they've removed themselves from the equation. So you're absolutely right.
And what's the biggest threat to their power, Seth?
Like rivals, probably. Like other elite rivals. I don't think so at all.
The people
competitors,
almost zero threat from the people. The unwashed masses, almost
no.
Zero
if the
threat.
Unwashed masses decided to take these people out,
they can't.
How? We're going to take out a nuclear power plant?
They're incapable of making that decision. Like even me, who's like spends a large part of my life trying to fight and understand and learn.
That's why they keep you from getting hungry
and compete with them. Like I still keep my money in big banks, the biggest, safest banks, and
That's
stuff
why
like that.
They kill you in sneaky little ways. But they don't let you go hungry. Because if everybody went hungry,
right?
I mean, thought experiment, right? What if enough people did get out of here and go to Mars and start their own thing, right? And they weren't. It's just the fun, basic, flawed thought experiment. But Mars was a successful, prosperous planet without the structure that exists here on Earth right now. And that Martian structure that was, again, very flawed, but utopian, free, liberty. Hey, everybody, we're going to do it our way. We're going to do our own thing. And it's all good, right? Okay. Yeah. But perfect. Okay. And they amassed enough of a position of power and force, unifying to come back here and say, hey, elites, you've screwed humanity over for all of our written history. It's time for you to go.
That's literally Dave Chappelle's joke in his new special, right? He's like, well, imagine that humans left the Earth and that the UFOs are us in the future that came back and they want the planet back. And he wants to call the movie Space Jews, which I don't think is going to be Netflix acceptable.
I don't know. They've got Hillary's kill list on there. The Clinton body count.
Nice.
It is the subject of the world.
I think the biggest thing they fear is the people. People rising up against them. That's the biggest thing the elites.
I hear you both. I think that there's a point where A Bug's Life is a little too pseudo-Marxist for me, and I don't know if we really could just rise up that way. But I agree with
we
Seth.
We can and have many times in the past.
I think Seth's right though that there's a lot of like Batman versus Superman here, where Batman knows how to conquer Superman because he's got the kryptonite, and so we need to be at least on the level of educating ourselves, keeping notes and diaries and journals for 5 generations at least, so you know what's going on outside of the mainstream media and the public schools. And then you might be on the same level where you're able to have some sort of an understanding of what's going on in the world. But it's pretty hard to do otherwise if we're not really communicating and working with each other.
Communicating and working with each other. That is the hardest thing for all of us to do. As I interrupted you.
I agree. I think we're actually, though, that is the thing. We are making, it does feel like some kind of progress that we're able to have these conversations, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't feel like people just were this blunt. So the MK Ultra beta kittens, what's going on with Anne Hesh being murdered?
I think I'm the dedicated chat watcher here, because I'll keep reacting to the chat. But Simone, I'm going to try to say his name right. Simone Claret.
Simon Claret.
He says, "Careful what you wish for, Pink Trip." I don't wish for that. I wish I wish for the people that run this country to give a shit about the country and make everybody happy. That's what I wish for.
Or at least provide ample opportunity for us to pursue our own happiness.
Yeah, and stop
squeezing us.
Yeah, stop being such corrupt pieces of shit. You know?
Do you believe it's going to come to a point, though, if America's working and China's not working, do you believe it's going to come to a point where it has to be a world that's working or not a world working? It can't be that one country's working and other countries aren't, because we share seas.
If that happens, where everybody gets together and just goes full French Revolution on stuff, that's not going to be good for the elites, and it's not going to be good for the people either. That goes very ugly, very fast.
The full French Revolution wasn't a full French Revolution, because it was highly organized, and the result of it was
and Napoleon was Corsican. But
I mean, it's the first thing I can think of, the French Revolution.
No, but you're right. I mean, but it's a perfect example. The French illusion. It was a fake revolution, and the result of it was exactly the opposite of what the people engaging in it wished for.
You're right. It was. I mean, that's my ancestors. They had to flee France because of French.
And by the way, the American Revolution, look what that blossomed into. The greatest military,
tax-paying government in the world. Yeah. I mean, I paid taxes. I went to Staples and bought some paper and a broom.
The most fascist nation in history, just in terms of collusion between government and industry possible.
Yeah, it was good for a little while there. Yeah.
But I think there's a different it is possible to change the power structure that exists right now, but you have to know if you have a prayer or a plan, and they don't we're kind of halfway in between one of them, because we're kind of praying that just evil faces its day, you know what I mean, and good people will do good things. That's kind of like the prayer aspect of it. The plan aspect of it, we're kind of poisoned against culturally, which would be to get way smarter. If they have more cooperation of intelligence and more information than us, and that's where they're so able to easily propagandize us, poison us with chemicals, do stuff to us we don't even know what they're doing with HARP and stuff like that. It would really behoove us in our planning to get a lot smarter, and the ways you would get a lot smarter are by doing things like DMT, inserting neural chips into your head, stuff that we're culturally poisoned against. If we would just stop, that would be a good plan.
If we would stop being lazy and getting all of our information from mainstream media sources and actually go and do our own research, if 70% of the country would go, you know what, I'm just going to stop listening to what people tell me, and I'm going to go do my own research, I think that would be enough to make a big change.
Except for this show, make sure you keep watching Wednesday Ultra. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but we're not.
we're not really
like the mainstream media.
We're already making big changes. We're having this great awakening, and our masters who are domesticating us currently might not feel great about that. So it's kind of dangerous to go at this half pace that we're at. And for me, it's all about mental upgrades, chips, whatever boosts your cognition is, DMT, whatever does it. We're this race against the clock where we're slowly becoming a threat to our master class. That's not a good idea.
20 years from now, I can picture I'm going to be laying in bed and VBDC is going to just float over me with all of his technologies. Look at me, Pink Trip. Look what I've become. Don't you want to be this?
Just 1 year ago, I was the most brain chip, I was the most anti. I've totally had a flip, because I felt like my way of thinking was leading to bad predictions. And I was like, why am I so smart and making all these bad predictions? I was like, I must have core foundational tenets that are inverted. So I inverted my thinking and try to think like the elitists and the globalists. And I see everything differently now, but will still change again later too. So it's just experimenting with.
You still don't want to kill kids, so that's the interesting thing. Is
I don't want to kill anyone, dude. I went to a park today and fed the squirrels and the ducks. I'm the
hell yes.
I don't fornicate because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I haven't been able to get married. So I you know what I mean. I'm the most sensitive to other life forms' feelings, but while still living that way, I feel like it's robbing. I think for all of us to constrain your thought, to not be able to think in uncomfortable ways, is robbing everyone of your gifts. You know what I mean? Right. So it's good to be good in simple ways, but there's other way and it requires personal sacrifice to put yourself kind of through mental torture and imagining yourself as the enemy and asking all these impossible questions and stuff, not to make more of it than it is, but that I totally changed over the course of a year. I was a Bible reading Christian a year ago. So
I think that is so badass of you, Seth, for you to be able to take your mind, look at it, and change it. That is a skill that we all have innately. And I would finesse it by simply saying, to be able to consider multiple frames of mind. To do that is the first major big step in educating ourselves, in taking that step and saying, hey, wait a minute. Let me ask my own questions. Let me do my own research. Let me figure this out a little bit on my own over here, this way, today. To do that, to not simply go, okay, give me the pink sludge. To just to ask questions and consider, not to agree or disagree, but to consider, that's a superpower that we all have that not many of us are tapping into. Although I think more and more are. Chat for show.
I really love that we can talk about these things and that they're no longer as hypothetical. I mean, some of these people are actually doing this. There actually are people that are getting genetic modification, that are getting Neuralink, that are in the next few years, we're going to see the answers through our friends and our family and people online. So these questions are no longer abstracts. This is something about today.
They are wins. That's right.
That's
They're not ifs, they are wins.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. Everything's not an if, it's a when. Yeah.
I just keep picturing BBDC with his eyes glowing and he's all.
I look forward to the visitation, yo.
Yeah, like
come it. Yeah,
you made it. Let's stop.
Get me out of this meat prison, bro. I've already got too many injuries and
floating overhead. That sounds wonderful.
Get me out of my meat cage. Put me in an android body.
Just come float to me and show me how awesome it is, so I can know to jump in or not.
And that's the real thing: is the next generation. Really
what if you have to take DMT to go to heaven? What if it's ask yourself these crazy questions? What if Alex Jones is Satan?
I want to
do the DMT.
How do you die? How do you die without taking DMT? It releases. You have to.
That's right.
I've never talked to anybody that's told me that they did DMT and then they started calling for Jesus in like a biblical way. Like started praying to Jesus. I wonder what would happen.
Cocaine usually does that. You'll be like, if you take too much cocaine,
that's a great question.
Oh man, Jesus, all night.
The biggest disappointment for me is I do DMT for the first time and I take 3 big hits and hold them in, and I right away go to the entities and they're like, tell me the same thing they tell everyone else. Like I'm not like special or something. I would hope I'd go meet the entities. They'd be like, it's
come
you.
On,
oh my god,
you were get in here. What you
like, get in here? Send them on the roller coaster.
If you want to freak anybody out, please go to youtube.com/pinktrip and send him pictures of your feet or things about.
I don't have foot fetishes. Don't put that out there.
I'm just messing with you.
I love regular ass shit, not that shit.
You'd be surprised.
Bro, look at all these views. This is
You'd
crazy.
be surprised actually, because the only place you'll find crazier conversations than on Xirtus is probably Pink Trip, because he'll cut together these really amazing videos. And I love this one about Tucker Carlson, because this is how I feel people should see Tucker Carlson. Really. I mean, that's how I see him. He's a beautiful man, really. And everyone's like, Tucker Carlson, he's a drunk from Alabama. I'm like, I know you're jealous. You just wish to God you could have spent 1981 partying with Tucker. I get it. But
I got a big episode coming next week. I'm going to be talking to Alex again. So we can do Alex Jones part 2. And that should be, I'm going to go there this weekend and it should come out sometime next week.
You gonna wear the hat?
Because I wore the hat last time because I buzzed my hair. I didn't like the way it looks. Now my hair is looking good. I don't need to wear it.
You got awesome hair, bro.
Very nice hair, yo.
He's really nice.
Very
hair.
nice.
It's true. We're all jealous. That's nice hair.
It's very nice.
So make sure you go to pinktrip.com and check out Pink Trip Mark's hair, because it's nice. And join also because there's some things there. Also the
amazing
Twitter.
video.
The Twitter is good. He's sharing my video, so you have to share his Twitter. That's a good thing. Linktree.ee/VBDC for Venice Beach Dub Club. You can go to his YouTube and watch his new music video, Hybrid Love. Oh my God, my audio is not working on this computer. Last time I shared it,
bro. All
it was
the videos are up there, and just go to my Linktree. Everything is there, including the store. And I appreciate the support. Working on a new album. fully shadow banned on Instagram to the point where I have 12,000 followers and my stories get 20 views. So it's like I can't promote my own stuff. I'm just like I'm dependent upon the kindness of strangers to share what I do.
Are you trying to do? Are your reels getting anywhere? Because that's the only luck I have is with reels.
Like slightly, you know,
Dude,
but none
so
of them
Seth-
get
Seth had a show for years now called Talkie Time. It's like
I
the
stopped
greatest.
doing it pretty much because it used to get thousands of views and now it gets like 10. Like
They
literally, you saw
blacklist
when
them.
you pulled up my page, it was like under like my last episode from last night is like 75 views. So it's like they
Wow.
basically beat me out of doing that. They beat me into submission on that. But
Maybe cut it up, like do the talk, but then like cut it up into reels. You know?
true.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
cut up the best parts and put it out as reels.
No, but
Yeah,
they
these
are
are a lot of-
legit. Yeah.
I'm starting to lose my ability to catch up with all these new dog tricks too. You know,
I
what
know
mean?
it sucks, dude. They're always changing the way it works.
Pushing 50 and it's amazing I'm even on social media. But yeah, everyone just go support and share and I'll have a new album out this
Well,
summer.
you're
It's
looking good
hard.
I am
almost
looking
50,
forward
bro.
to the summer music. Yeah, dude, you look fantastic.
He's
Dude,
a rock star.
If I had 1/10 of the muscle structure, dude, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? I would be a model. I don't know.
Slap
Let's
someone's
go
head
to
off.
MrDouglas.com with a 3. One of my favorite people in the world and the best audiobook you can get is the Secrets of Power audiobook narrated by Mr. Douglas. Here it is right here. Ingo Swan's gem-filled treasure chest, Secrets of Power Volume 1.
I'm
Yeah,
listening to it right now.
Yeah?
Which is awesome. Thank you very much.
Legit. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, so we'd first been excited about this because he did the he was actually independently recording it, and they legitimately were like, "This is the best it could be," and he's like, "I could do better," and they're like, "Okay." So then he did it. You're on, and then he's challenge accepted.
He's
So
got a silky voice, man.
In a sense,
Yeah.
it was a kind of taking action and manifesting a wonderful opportunity. And I am forever grateful. It is a great way to build a reality box that can upgrade yourself without injecting a chip into your brain. Though, who knows? Once you read this book, you might find all of the answers in the next step.
my God, I
Beautiful.
want to record this on a cassette tape so I can listen to my car, but also so then you and Ingo Swan's thoughts will be magnetic, I think is the plan. So
Mm.
Right now, I'm actually working on Milton Erickson's style hypnosis scripts. I've got a couple of doozies. I might put them out in a couple of weeks. But boy, I'm going right to sleep and feeling really good about it. It's pretty
that
fantastic.
sounds good. I found a box of old self-help tapes from the early, like those guided meditation tapes for yuppies. That's going to make me successful. All right. I love you all. I'll see you next week. Thank you for
Appreciate
being
you
here.
Thank you, Andreas.
out.
You're
Later, guys.
fantastic.
Thank
You
you.
stop. You're
Well,
beautiful.